everybody, welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here and Jack Cannan. All the lights are currently lit here on track, and it is go, go, go!
Contact between the Mercedes teammates.
Denoso with a crafty manoeuvre up the inside. Masterclass from the Chilean.
Crucial championship points on offer here.
Do not count down Danny Berezne.
Longe has done the job. This is for the win between these two.
Freddie Rasmussen wins the United States Grand Prix.
Alfie Butcher wins for the first time ever. Lucas Blakely takes the championship. It's Barry Foreman.
Jarno Opmeer is your champion.
Good evening everyone and welcome back to PSGL PC F1 for round number 3 of season 37 tonight on a day of some very big news dropping, a big bombshell on the F1 sim racing scene. We have got Japan. It should be an exciting ride tonight. You may be thinking right now, George Morgan's looking a little bit different at the minute. I can say he is away at the Esports World Cup, but a very familiar face is joining me today. It is, of course, Jack Cannan. Jack, how are you doing tonight?
I'm realising that you never actually said who you were. You just said you were Jack's replacement. Dan Field, ladies and gentlemen. He's the new George Morgan. Yes, thank you very much. We're so happy to be back again, Japan. And yes, you alluded to it there. The big news of the day. This is what's going to be talked about for the rest of the evening on multiple occasions. The only problem is the slight issue is that it won't look like there's been big news because we're running the F1 World Cup, of course. It's going to be talked about nonetheless for the rest of the evening because, Jarno's now officially a Red Bull racing driver. We saw that coming, and what a lineup that is. You think about it, Dan. We've got now Jarno Opmeer and Freddie Rasmussen on the same team.
Jack, for the first time, I'm not the one having microphone issues. You've gone very quiet. I don't know if that's on my side of things, but hopefully everyone in the live chat can hear me as well. I thought I had this all sorted, honestly, but as soon as we've started here tonight, the issues come back. Please do bear with us, everyone. This evening we are getting ready for a very exciting action. Jack, can you just do a little sound test? Make sure it's okay.
If everyone can still hear my lovely tone, I have used my beautiful mixer to try and boost everything up, so hopefully that sounds a little bit better. But nonetheless, of course, we had plenty of drama. If you did miss last week, please do go back and watch it because it was incredibly close at the very end with the most mental race at Silverstone. Silverstone always delivers a race, we know that. But on this occasion, we had a mixed strategy race where we had Jarno Opmeer do a no-stop race to try and get to the end, and we had, of course, the legendary strategy by Tom from the end, switching on to those fresh intermediate tires and making his way through. Incredible race. If you did miss it, go check it out. But of course, the big drama was Lucas Blakely, who blew the left rear tire off the car, and it was an incredible race. He was championship leader going into that previous race course. He came out with no points last week. He'll be looking for redemption this week.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got the results on your screen, Jack. It's still coming up as quiet. Maybe you're having the same issues that I normally do. I have no idea why this happens. It's honestly not me this time by. But yeah, having a look at the results on your screen, Tom Manley, he decided to make a pit stop last time out, and it worked very well in his favour. Jarno Opmeer with his zero stop strategy in P2, and after Lucas Blakely's puncture, Declan Barrett ended up coming in third position. Danny Berejnay in fourth with Barry Borman in fifth. Sixth was Josh Idowu. Tomek Paragis in seventh. Eighth was Brendan Lee. Ninth, Freddie Radisson and Wilson Hughes rounded out the top 10 with Shanika Clay 11th, Ishmael Fassi 12th, Otis Lawrence in 13th, Jack West 14th. 15th was Lucas Blakely, Tamas Gal, Jake Benham, Ennis Van Pookie. Very disappointing races for them. Thomas Ronhart in 19th, and then Alvaro Carreton, the lone DNF of the evening. But after round number 2, let's see how that impacted the drivers' standings coming into today. It is, of course, still the Flying Dutchman, Jarno Opmeer, on top at the minute, 18 points ahead of Lucas Blakely on 16. And with that win, Tom Manley jumps all the way up into third position with Brendan Lee in behind on 16. Well, actually, the second through to fourth, all on the same amount of points. Danny Berejnay was supposed to be racing tonight, has backed out at the very last minute, unfortunately. He sits in P5 on 13 with Alvaro Carreton and Declan Barrett, both of them on 10. Barry Burman on 9 in 8th, and then Ishmael Fassi as well on 8 in 9th. Nicholas Longe rounds out the top 10 alongside Josh Idowu in 11th, and then Tomek Paragis on 4 points with Duncan Hoffland, Freddie Rasmussen on 2. And the last of the drivers with points this season is, of course, Jake Benham, Wilson Hughes and Otis Lawrence. Shanika Clay, Philip Presnada and Thomas Ronhart yet to get off the mark. But without further ado, Jack, let's have a look at the grid for this evening. And I think the main thing to talk about is, of course, Jarno Opmeer making that move to Red Bull.
Big move, isn't it? I think it was something that people were expecting for quite a while. We knew there was going to be a move, but we have, I suppose, wrongly assumed that he was going to another team because he was registered, of course, at Alpine for the last couple of while. But of course, he's now off on the Red Bull grid, so it is going to be an interesting one. Josh Ido now, of course, at Alpine, and Tomek Paragis now moves over to Alpine, of course, to fill that vacant seat. So, I've now turned up my mic as far as it can go.
There
guys,
we go.
Unless your ears are going to get blown off in this race, I've now gone all the way up to appease all of you. So there you go. So if you do get annoyed that I'm shouting, well, here you go. It's now up as far as it can go. So let's see if that works. So my poor old mixer is going to have a great time down there, isn't it? So anyways, as we said, Jarno Opmeer now at Red Bull, of course, and Tomek Paragis taking that vacant seat. But we have a couple of reserves in, of course, as you can see. Both Ferrari cars are now in, of course, now being replaced with Xander Van Dijk and Ruben Pedreño, who are in there as well, because of course the Ferrari guys are away on a Ferrari business, and Aston Martin as well. We have two drivers in there, David Pepinter and Joris Kortsen, who is also now taking his PC F1 debut there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been accustomed to Joris Kortsen as of recent weeks on the F1 24 game, and he has been mighty impressive. So it should be very exciting to see what he is able to do this evening. You can see the rest of the grid on your screen as well. A couple of reserves filling in for our main drivers, but I can confirm we are about to head into the race. So not into the race, into qualify. I'm getting ahead of myself just a little bit at the start of this one. I'm excited to be back here in PSGL F1, but yes, we will head into qualifying after a quick word from our sponsors. So we'll see you in just a few moments time. Welcome back, everyone. To qualifying has just got underway, and we of course get to see the very familiar intermediate runs at the very start of the session. Gives us a nice little bit of time to ease into the session, Jack. But we are watching Freddie Rasmussen at the minute. Very different livery to what we see normally with him in that Red Bull. Of course, with these F1 World cars, due to the equal cars not being all that equal, but nevertheless a very nice brown and pink livery for him there. It's an interesting colour scheme, but you know what? I'm rocking with it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But it does make life a little bit difficult for us if we're trying to follow who's in what team, because there is a Constructors' Championship, of course, in PSGL, but you wouldn't really know it because everyone's got such a different colour scheme on the car. So yeah, you can see Freddie Rasmussen out there on the intermediate tyres, and unfortunately, we're switching to Yarn over the moment. He is out on wet tyres, as you can see, but his car doesn't look very Red Bull-like, I would say. But I can confirm. Technically now he is in a Red Bull, so we'll have to get used to that. Freddie Rasmussen and Jarno Watmir teaming up at Red Bull for this next season, so that'll be an interesting dynamic to watch. But I mean, you've got the current F1 Esports champion and a two-time F1 Esports champion alongside each other in the same car, so it's an incredible prospect, really, what they've got ahead.
I mean, statistically, this is the most dominant duo we're ever going to see in the F1 esports scene. They've got championships between them. Jarno Watmir, of course, a two-time sim racing champion. Freddie Rasmussen, the most recent champion. This is a very, very exciting team, and I'm still a little bit annoyed at Jarno Watmir because he hasn't changed his livery. He's going to have the same car pretty much as the likes of Xander Van Dyken and Philip Presnader. Actually, Philip's changed his ever so slightly, but it's going to be very difficult on the mini-map in the bottom corner to actually see who is on a proper run, as Philip is now headed through 130. Oh, he's got a pretty nice blue and white livery going on here. Dashes of red spread amongst the car. It's a very nice little design that he's got there, and it's interesting to see, Jack, that they are headed back into the pit lane with the cloudy skies up ahead. I'm wondering, is this session going to stay dry?
Well, it could be, so maybe Q1 might stay dry, but we could potentially have a wet session. We've had a wet race last week, of course, but we could end up in it with a Q2 with possibly some rain falling. So you can see not many drivers opting for the intermediate runs this time, so that'll be an interesting call. But I think that it's become less and less of a trend to go out there on the intermediate tyres just for one run. I mean, we used to see it lots throughout previous game cycles, but this seems to be kind of the weakest one that we've had. But you can sort of see as we head towards, normally around the 10-minute marks when things pick up, but it gives us a chance to sort of have a look. There's some names there that maybe we wouldn't have seen before making their way into PCF. When you've got Julian Klaffenbach, of course, who is down there, P19. He's jumping in this week. Lenny Pepinter as well, hopping in as well. Joris Kreutzen, not a name I've seen before, actually, part of RAG right there. He's making his PCF1 debut, so best of luck to him. And Tycho Hardy as well in there, and Xander Van Dyken there in for Ferrari. So that'll be interesting to watch how they get on. But of course, the star of last week, Dan, was a certain Tom Manley. Now, he'll be hoping for another wet race because the strategy call from him and his team was absolutely outstanding. Of course, the top two, Lucas Blakely and Jarno Watmir, opted to do a no-stop strategy, or try and take all their intermediate tyres all the way to the end, but it didn't quite work out. And but of course, Tom Manley bolted on a set of intermediate tyres. I personally thought the gap was going to be too much, but he managed to claw back about 20 seconds in a couple of laps, and he ended up taking the victory at Silverstone, which is the 4th British winner in a row in PSGL. So the record might keep going.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see. We've got a decent few British drivers on the grid here this evening. They're not all hailing from the very same place. Wilson Hughes of Scotland, Josh Edo of Wales, Lucas Blakely as well from Scotland. So there's a decent chance that that trend can continue on. And of course, the man from Crew, Tom Manley, is also on this grid tonight. We'll have to wait and see, as it's looking like a bit of a ghost town out on circuit this evening. You can get a little appreciation of our sponsorship boards all across this circuit. It's such a fun little innovation that we use here in PSGL. Really does personalise the sort of feel to this race, and I mean, what a better track to do it at. This is Japan, one of the most iconic circuits on the Formula 1 calendar, in my opinion. It's been home to plenty of championship tussles, in particular between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. And of course, whilst I love it, the drivers, they don't seem to enjoy this circuit too much. But Jack, in my opinion, that is going to make all for an exciting... I'm losing my words. It's going to make for a more exciting Grand Prix because it really is going to add to the unpredictability of this one.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. And as well, of course, there is a championship to talk about, but of course it's very, very early days to talk about a championship. We're only on round number 3 now, but of course we were going right the way through to October. And we, of course, have had 2 different winners in the first 2 races. Lucas Blakely taking round 1, Tom Manley taking round 2. So we've had 2 different winners. Let's see if we can get a third. We'd be hoping for a third and keep a nice record going of perhaps some new winners. Perhaps there's a higher chance of a new winner tonight, I suppose, with the amount of reserves that are on the grid. But we'll be looking to see who's going to come out first and get a lap on the board, because it's been very quiet out on track for the past 3 rounds or 3 minutes. So normally we usually expect around the 10-minute mark that cars will start moving down the pit lane. For once. So normally this is the time where you'd miss guys like Fabrizio Donoso, who would just go out and just maybe drift around the circuit for a little while just to give us some entertainment, or the Brendan Lee special, which is doing 360s in the middle of the straight. So nobody's going to do that for us this time, and I'm a little bit disappointed.
No, it's very disappointing. I mean, it's normally about the 10-minute mark is when drivers start to come out onto the circuit, but we're now 9:45 and no one is coming out. And as I say that, there is actually a car exiting onto the circuit. It's a white car. Is that Josh Edo? Who is that? Oh, we're going to wait and see. It's exciting. Who is it going to be to exit onto the circuit very first here this evening? Tycho Hardy is coming out onto the track, but it is Philip Presnader in his nice blue and white car. Of course, one of the first winners here in PSGL all the way back in season 27 or 28. He's got the experience on this grid. It's good to see him always available when he's needed to be a reserve. He'll be the first one to take to the circuit, and I mean, he opened up the floodgates, because now look how many cars are coming out onto the circuit. There's a train of 3 black cars on the minimap, and it is going to really pain me to actually work out who that is. It's between Pepinter, Lee, Pookie, Paragish as well. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for us this evening, Jack.
It certainly is, yeah, to keep an eye on that mini-map. That's the one thing that we will miss about not having the equal cars, is of course this this situation that we've got here. Of course, you will notice as well that ghosting is enabled, collisions are off here in qualifying, and that's for the reason that Slipstream is incredibly powerful on this game, and you, of course, can gain quite a lot of time just by even by following at a very far distance. The drivers have worked out you still gain about a 10th or 2 just by following another car around. So the drivers have agreed to turn off collisions in qualifying, and that just evens the playing field in a certain regard as well. But every single car is out on the circuit except for Jake Benham, who's retired and decided he wants to go from the back of the grid. So we'll see how he gets on from there, because it worked out for a couple of drivers last week, namely Freddie Rasmussen, who came from 19th up to 6th in the, or actually almost 4th, I think it was in the end, for Freddie Rasmussen. But it's going to get busy now, so this is going to be a little bit of an interesting end to Q1 of the first runs, but Philip Presnader will get us underway.
Yeah, Philip Presnader making his way through the S's. These curbs are lethal on this F124 game, especially around Suzuka. Actually, I think it's quite the opposite. They're actually relatively easy to mount, except for this track, and maybe that's why the drivers don't seem to like it. But it's a 31.711 through the very first sector for Philip Presnader, now taking to the hairpin corner, where I think we can really expect some dive bomb moves. He locks up ever so slightly through the left-hander. Get back on the power as soon as you can. You saw the flashing red lights from Philip. He's saving a little bit of ERS through the parts where you don't really need it, so he can burn it all off the exit of Spoon Corner. This is a very tricky double left-hander. It's very easy to run wide onto the gravel to the right-hand side, but Philip suffering no such problems. He'll climb up the hill and towards 130R, and through the second sector, it is going to be a 1 minute 10.602. So far, Jack, looking like a clean lap for Philip.
Yeah, just needs to make sure he gets a time on the board at the very least. It's very easy to sort of invalidate times around here, especially in that last chicane. And look, just as I say it, what does he do? And he invalidates it in the final chicane. So that's going to be no time on the board for Philip Presnader, right as we say it. Now, I was going to talk about how dangerous that final chicane can be for laps, and that just proved it, because drivers are obviously trying to find the limit of every little part of that chicane, trying to get every inch out of it. But if you go over the limit, it's very, very easy to do that. Thomas Gall will be the first car to cross the line, then 26 26.7 and gets us underway, followed by Julian Klaffenbach, who goes into second place. So you'll see a rapid fire times as well. Joris Kreutzen crosses the line there, and he goes into second place. Wilson Hughes on a 27.0 will slot in there. Lenny Pepinter next. So we'll get the first indication. It's all about being in that top 15, of course, in Q1s. This is not for pole position, obviously. So you'll just be trying to get a banker lap on the board and make sure that you want to get your fast lap out of the way first. Thomas Ronauer, of course, he'll do that straight away. 26.5. Brendan Lee, 26.789. He goes to third place, and Rasmussen pops to the top then on a 26.549. Plenty more to come. Pedreño goes 11th. Jarno Wotmir in the final chicane now in his very Red Bull, not Red Bull car, whatever it is, but it is a Red Bull, I promise you. Crosses the line now, and he goes to third on a 26.762. McLaren's next across the line as well. Lucas Blakely, 26.871. So the first sort of laps are kind of coming to an end right now, but you would imagine Freddie Rasmussen and Tom Ronauer on a 26.5.
Couple of connection issues there for Jack. Hopefully all is okay on his side of things, but you can see the laps on your board. Freddie Rasmussen is the quickest at the minute, a 1 minute 26.549 for the Dane. And in the drop zone at the other end of the field, it's Tomek Paradzis with the slowest time set at the minute. It's Van Pookie, Xander Van Dyken and Philip Presnader, all of them unfortunately invalidating their lap times. And of course we know Jake Benham is out of this session. He decided to call it quits in the pit lane, not bothering to qualify around Japan. Definitely a very interesting decision. Of course, it's pretty difficult to overtake around this circuit, being with only one DRS zone and not really all that many heavy braking zones. I mean, you've got the hairpin corner and the Casio triangle where you can go deep up the inside. But it is very interesting from Jake Benham to see him retiring from this session. 4 minutes left to go in Q1, and at the minute I would say Joris Kreutzen upwards. I think they're all safe in this session. Jack, do we have you on the other end?
I hope so.
I can hear you fine.
It's all right. That's good. But what I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by the demons, Freddie Rasmussen and Thomas Ronauer are more than likely going to be fine on a 26.5. But as you can see, Thomas Ronauer has retired the car. 26.5. Rasmussen probably won't need to go again. But yeah, you'd imagine 26.7s. But the only issue is there, you can see from Jarno Wotmir down to Joris Kreutzen, they're all on a 26.7. So there's if you find even a marginal improvement, you could jump up the orders. The cutoff time currently is a 27.0 for Wilson Hughes there, so he'll more than likely will need to go again. But you've got guys, Van Pookie, Xander Van Dyken for the Presnader, haven't put a lap in at all. Tomek Paradzis less than a tenth of a second off of making it through. So I don't know, if I was in sort of around, you're probably right, around Lenny Pepinter of our Caraton territory, I'd be a little bit worried.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think they've definitely got to go again, and we're seeing multiple cars coming out onto the circuit. Van Pookie will be the first one. I think Wilson Hughes has just come out onto the circuit, but I'm waiting to see if anyone in that sort of top 7 area is expected to come out on circuit. As you can see, everyone out on track is a driver's sort of lower down. They've probably fueled up the car for multiple runs here. Just in case they mess up, they're going to have another crack at the whip on the second lap. So they're playing it safe at this point. Some more drivers exiting the circuit, one of them being the all salmon car. I'm going to say that's salmon from Joris Kreutzen. He is coming out onto the circuit, as is Brendan Lee. I'd expect, well, Tom Manley's retired in the pit lane. He believes he's safe, but he's only about 200 clear of Joris Kreutzen and Brendan Lee, so very fine margins that both Jarno Wotmir and Tom Manley are actually playing with here.
Absolutely, yeah, but obviously they would have done their homework. There's only a thousandth of a second between himself and Jarno Wotmir as well, 7.62 and a 0.763. Of course, they would have been at the top end of the order last time in Silverstone. But you can see everybody from Thomas Gall down is out on the circuit for a lap. So this is going to be very, very interesting to watch. You've got a couple of cars who are all on a 26.7. Then you've got Lenny Pepinter all the way down to Julian Klaffenbach are all on a 26.8. Josh Ito on a 26.9. then Pedreño and Wilson Hughes on a 27.0 on the cut-off time. So any improvement will, of course, get you through, but they're going to need every single thousandth of a second to ensure that they're going to get through. So, I mean, we say it all the time here in PSGL, it's an achievement to even make it out of Q1 in most cases.
Absolutely, with how close this grid is week in, week out, really anyone can be eliminated if you just make the slightest slip up on your lap. Those thousandths, which in many other leagues and many other tiers do not matter, they are absolutely critical that you get everything out of the car, especially around a circuit like Japan, one of the more challenging circuits on the calendar and one that drivers don't tend to like on this F1 24 game, as this Van Pookie slides his way through the hairpin corner. He's got 40 seconds left to go. He's leaving everything on the circuit at the minute. He's doing all right. He's done a 31.4 in that first sector. We'll see how that stacks up compared to the rest of the grid as he dances on a knife's edge through the spoon corner and gets the power down as quick as he can, climbing up the hill and in towards 130R. We'll see what his time is at the end of the second sector. It's a 10.409. Is that going to be enough to get him out of the depths of Q1? We'll have to wait and see. Currently 17th without a time on the board. It's Van Pookie through the final few corners at the Casio Triangle, rounds the final corner, and it is going to be a 1 minute 26.838 from the Hungarian. It's safe for now, but it's not all that impressive. Wilson Hughes with a worse time there, 1 minute 26.878. Ruben Pedreño has put himself into 6th position, and he should be safe from this session. Can't say the same thing, unfortunately, for Tomek Paradzic. He is out of this qualifying session. One name I'm looking at, Josh Edo in that drop zone, Jack.
He is as well. He's going to need an improvement on this lap. Joris Kreutzen on a good lap here as he crosses the line, goes third fastest. He'll be safe. Oh, 26.6. Good effort from him there, crossing the line behind. No improvement from a car behind there as we wait to see now the final. Josh Edo does make it through. He makes it into 6th place there. So he is safe within that car. Brendan Lee goes 4th fastest on that previous time as we wait for the last couple of cars. Now, the man in danger is Lucas Blakely. Needs this lap to get out of the drop zone and just about gets through. Lucas Blakely, by the skin of his teeth, gets through into the next part of qualifying. But Tycho Hardy, Wilson Hughes, Tomek Paradzic, Jake Benham and Philip Preschnader all eliminated. But that's scary times for Lucas Blakely. 8 thousandths was all it took.
12 thousandths. Sorry, yeah, no, I can't read apparently. 8 thousandths of a second is what is able to save Lucas Blakely from this session. Unfortunately, on the other end of it, Tycho Hardy eliminated from Q1. But Lucas, I mean, you'd expect him to be qualifying towards the front of the order. But unfortunately, that is just not how it's played out at the start of this session. But it is only Q1. Your results are on your screen. Freddie Rasmussen tops this session ahead of Thomas Ronhaar by just 5 thousandths of a second. Joris Kreutzen continues to impress in F1 2024. He's done a 1 minute 26.604 to put himself in 3rd. Tamas Gao got up to 4th with Brendan Lee in 5th. Jan Ortmid, Tom Manley in 6th and 7th. And we'll go down to the bottom of the order to see who's eliminated. It's Tycho Hardy, Wilson Hughes, Tomek Paradzic, Jake Benham and Philip Preschnader eliminated from this qualifying session. Lots of drama very early on, but of course, Jack, it is only Q1, and so we've got to wait and see. Really, Q3, that's when we need to start really considering things.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we were expecting maybe a shock elimination, but it wasn't quite. Maybe not as big of a shock, and that's not to downplay the efforts of the drivers, of course, but perhaps it's good to see the reserves performing well. They're Joris Kreutzen, Lenny Pepinter, Julian Klaffenbach, all getting through to the next part of qualifying, which is a great effort, especially from Joris Kreutzen there. Who'd never been in PCF1 before, has immediately put himself on the map there, but straight through to Q2. And we know the teams do keep an eye on league racing, so they'll be watching this with interest for all those young reserves there. Of course, part of RHG already, so the teams are keeping an eye on them, but of course, they'll be wanting to see how the drivers perform. They'll be keeping an eye on it, but no sign of any rain. Looks like it's actually cleared up a little bit in the time from Q1 to Q2, so we can expect some quick times here. But expect these first runs to be on the used set of the soft tire.
Yep, absolutely. We'll bring you back now. We can see the first drivers out on circuit. It is Thomas Ronhaar on track. We'll see what he can do in his very nice green kick Sauber-esque livery. It's nice to see that he's made the effort to make his car similar to how it is with his team being Kick Sauber. I do wish other drivers would follow on that initiative. I think, of course, the McLarens, Lucas Blakely and Wilson Hughes, they're actually able to use the esports livery which is in the game, which I think is handy enough for them. But Thomas Ronhart, nice effort from him there. I'll give that a 7 out of 10. Hopefully, for the microphone issues, Jack, I've turned down myself and I've turned down the game volume. So fingers crossed, by comparison, you should sound okay. Because everyone's saying it's a little bit quiet, but you know what? We're going to run with it as Thomas Ronhart is going to get that last bit of heat in his tyres. And see what lap it is. Of course, you are absolutely right in this being a used set of the tyres, but it's nice to get a feel early on in Q2. He is followed by a whole gaggle of cars in behind.
Absolutely. We're talking about cars that look similar to the liveries. I will give Alvaro Carreton some props because, of course, he's part of Williams. So it at least looks like a Williams with the blue on his car there as we cross the start line now. Thomas Ronhart will get us underway. Now, he of course, was in a battle for... We said last week, Silverstone, you don't want to qualify on pole. And that's not because of where it is on the circuit. It's because... nobody has managed to win from pole in PSGL, and it happened again last time. Of course, Tom Manley winning from, I think, was 6th on the grid, I think it was. So Ronhart, he was up towards the front, of course, but managed to, and unfortunately didn't end up getting the start, and again dropped back towards the end of the race. But he'll be hoping to carry that forward into this next round, try and get himself on the board. With a victory and a podium or whatever he can get, of course, but he'll be hoping that he can get himself a good result today nonetheless as he comes through the back of the circuit through towards 130R. Now, of course, remember, these are more than likely going to be a used set of the soft compound tires. These are not going to set the world alight, but some drivers may opt to do their new soft runs earlier than others. Some might opt to do a second run, so we're not going to know until they cross the line, really.
Yeah, I mean, a 10.9 in the first and second sector. It's not setting the world on fire, but it's a decent banker nonetheless for Thomas Ronhart. He'll round the final corner. What's it going to be for him there? 27.469, could be better, but yeah, decent effort from him as Tamas Gal comes across the line at 27.413. I need to get new glasses or something. I can't read today, unfortunately. Lucas Blakely invalid on his lap time. Josh Ido is coming through the final corner now. What's it going to be for the Welshman? He will come across with a 1 minute 27.713. Only 3 times on the board. Brendan Lee, interesting that he decided to take to the line despite being invalid on his lap, unless he's just started this one out. But a 32.5 in the first sector does beg to differ, but yeah, he is just essentially wasting a little bit of time that he could be in the pit lane and, you know, making any adjustments that he needs to, or getting a drink of water. I know he likes his yogurt as well, Brendan Lee, so he could be having a little bit of that, but yeah, very interesting call from him with 10 minutes left to go in this session. I'm rubbing my hands here, Jack. I'm excited for Q2 because, of course, the top 10 will advance here, and I'd say this session, even though Q1 it's a big shock to see some guys go out, I think Q2 is really, really where things get tight, because every single week, in every single league that these drivers compete in, it feels like there's 13 drivers worthy of Q3, but of course there's only 10 spots.
Of course, and the margins are so fine, as we know, but you can tell just straight away off those times with that we are on used sets, because we were in the 26s in the previous session, and we're just in the 27s this time, of course. So we are expecting drivers to come out. Not many opting for a used set run. So most drivers seem like they're going to come back out on fresh sets of tires on this next part. So they obviously don't see the benefit of doing a used tire run, which makes it all the more interesting for us, of course, as we wait for them to come out. Under 10 minutes left on the clock. I wonder now, because we've seen in Q1 Lucas Blakely just about making it through. Is he going to be the shock exit, or is somebody else going to be the shock exit? I mean, we don't really know.
Oh, it is very... It's unnerving. I'm actually worried that we might lose Lucas Blakely, and coming off such I'd say a gut-wrenching finish to the British Grand Prix, you know, his home circuit as well. It was so sad to see him get that puncture on the very final lap, heading into the very final sector. Fingers crossed that's not giving him any confidence issues, but knowing Lucas, he is just going to brush it off, get back on his feet, because he has got fantastic composure. And I think that lap might have just been a blip in Q1. He did what he needed to do to get into this session, and I think maybe, Jack, just maybe, he's saving his best for Q2 and Q3.
Of course, it wasn't the battle for pole, whereas we could expect Lucas Blakely to deliver when it counts. Of course, a former champion of PSGL and a former F1 Esports champion as well. Took the title, of course, back in controversial circumstances. If we go back a couple of seasons, it was the final lap at Monza. It was a shortened season that we didn't know was going to be shortened, but it ultimately decided the championship in the end when the championship was between himself, Freddie Rasmussen and Barry Boorman. And of course, on the final lap at Monza, Barry Boorman and Freddie Rasmussen managed to crash into each other on the final lap. Lucas Blakely went through and took the victory, and ultimately he won the championship by about 2 points. So that's the way it goes, and he took the championship with him, and he ended up winning the F1 Esports title in that same year. So generally, whoever wins the PSGL title does tend to go on and win the F1 Esports championship, but last season was the first time that didn't happen, because Jarno Watmere won the title here, of course, and Freddie Rasmussen finally managed to get himself an F1 Esports title after many, many years of trying. But nonetheless, we'll see if we can carry forward for another year, as the first proper runs are underway with Lenny Pepinter.
Yeah, Lenny Pepinter, I believe, locked in a title fight in F2 with another driver on this grid, Julian Klaffenbach. I know for a fact Julian is leading that championship, but I believe Lenny Pepinter is hot on his heels, and through this first sector, despite them not actually going to be able to gain any points in their own title fight respectively, I think just that mental battle of being able to compete at this level is going to do wonders for them. So they are going to be locking horns here this evening. Both of them, of course, getting through into this session, which is very fantastic. See, I know Tycho Hardy unfortunately eliminated in Q1, but he is also involved in that fight. So yeah, a lot of F2 drivers getting a chance to shine here this evening. Lenny Pepinter, I believe, being one of them. I gotta check my facts more often before the start of a PSGL race. But yeah, Lenny, we know him as an up-and-coming star in the F1 sim racing scene. It's good to see his representation here tonight. A 10.362 in the first and second sector, looking decent at the minute for Lenny Pepinter. This could be an all-right time from him, I want to say. Well, I don't really know what I can predict him to get, but through the final two corners, off the exit of the Casio Triangle, and to come across the line to open up the account today to 1 minute 26.740. Definitely could be better from Lenny Pepinter. What about Freddie Rasmussen? He'll come across the line, 26.521. That's more like it from Freddie.
It is, yeah. Joris Kreutzen, how about that? 26.6 for him. He managed that in the last time as well. Julian Klaffenbach 26.6 as well. We know this is going to be close as they cross the line. Istvan Pukki goes fourth on a 26.6. Now I'm checking. Lucas Blakely, I think, what did actually do a 26.64. However, he did invalidate the time, so the pressure's on again for Lucas Blakely on this occasion. Thomas Ronar, he's about to finish one of his laps as well as we wait now. Vara Caraton also, why not, does a 26.6. And then Brendan Lee joins the party on a 26.59. There's only two drivers in the 26.5s. Then a bunch of them on a 26.6 as Thomas Ronar crosses the line now, and he does a 26.51 as he crosses the start-finish line there, waiting for a few more to finish their laps. Up here now, 26.511. So four drivers on a 26.5, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers on a 26.6. Cut-off time, Lenny Pepinter on a 26.740. So I'm afraid it's still anybody's game, because I've no idea. Because this is the type of gap you deal with, everybody. This is from Joris Kreutzen down to Thomas Gall, is 6/100th of a second. And then for 26.51 to a 26.61, I mean, it's virtually nothing separating the entire grid. But Jarno Watmere currently fastest. Yeah,
honestly, this does nothing to help me with working out who is quickest on this grid at the minute. We see Thomas Ronho and Freddie Rasmussen featuring once again at the very top of things. But Jarno Watmere has been able to trump them both. And how about that for a top three gap? Jarno Watmere to Freddie Rasmussen, just 100th of a second. That is incredibly close, and Thomas Ronhaar is only 6 thousandths off the back of his fellow countryman. But at the other end of things, you're absolutely right, Jack. Lucas was able to do a 1 minute 26.649, I believe it was, to be exact. That would put him in just about P7 at the moment. However, whilst that is enough to get him into the top 10, that's not what we really expect from Lucas Blakely. We expect him to be at least in at the 26.5s, given his pace and his comparison to the other 4 drivers in the 0.5. So Lucas Blakely on the back foot, it seems, at the minute, but he's still got an opportunity to get out of this session. 3.5 minutes left to go as Jan Ortmeier swipes a bollard, fresh off a move to Red Bull. Jack, I only just got used to seeing him in an Alpine, and now he's made the move to Red Bull. I just can't keep up with this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the moral of the story is that we have all been well and truly pranked throughout the course of the PSGL season, because I kept, and it's half my fault, is that I kept bringing back the point that whenever we've seen drivers switch into different cars throughout the season, they've more than likely gone to that team. And this is the first time it actually hasn't happened. Jarno's decided to go to Red Bull rather than Alpine. So that's half my fault. But to go back to Lucas Blakely, of course, when we were talking about we were expecting more. He's actually could be on course for his second Q2 exit in a row this season, because, of course, he did qualify P11 in Silverstone and did end up just almost managed to get a victory, our second place there. But, of course, the puncture in the end. But he made the right tyre strategy call at the start. We had a mix of drivers starting on wets and intermediates that time, and he made the right call and made his way up. But yeah, he's looking like he's a little bit on the back foot, as you said, but we wait and see. Of course, we know how experienced he is. We're going to wait and see what he can deliver. But it's going to the cutoff time is anybody's guess. We're looking like it's going to be a 26.6 of some kind, because if we had Lucas Blakely finish that lap on a 26.64, the cutoff time would have been Thomas Gallon on 26.66. So that's what we're expecting. And Brendan Lee's decided he doesn't want to go again. And an interesting call, because Rasmussen, Ronhaar and Ortmeier feel that they have to go again.
That is very, very interesting, very intriguing from Brendan Lee there, the two-time F1 Sim Racing champion back in 2017 and 2018, still kicking it with the kids of today. He has gone very, very bold with retiring in the pit lane. We expect Alvaro Carreton, he's not going to make it. There's no way. It's got 1 minute 26 to get around. He's still got to go through that pit lane. I think Alvaro Carreton, he might as well just call it quits. There's no way he's getting a lap on the board unless he cuts every single corner possible, which is very difficult to do around this Suzuka circuit. So 2 drivers in the pit lane. Whether they make it through into the next session, that remains to be seen. We're watching Jan Ortmeier at the very back of things. He currently leads. Alvaro Carreton lagged out of the session. That's a real shame for him. But we'll turn our attention back to the front of the order. Tom Manley in the drop zone at the minute, coming off a win from Silverstone, his home Grand Prix. We're on the other side of the world, and maybe that jet lag is getting to him. Missing out on the top 10 at the minute by just 4 thousandths of a second. But we know the talent that is in this kid, and we'll see what he can do as he takes to this first sector, Jack.
Absolutely, he's the winner of last week with the strategy call of the century in that one. He's a 1/10 of a second up in that first sector, so already looking really good. Carreton, of course, he lagged out of the session, managed to join back, but he's just going to have to wait and see and hope that nobody else improves behind him. But unfortunately for him, Tom Manley is on an improvement, and a big one at that. Behind him, Lucas Blakely is also on an improvement as well, but he's actually not as quick as Tom Manley in that first sector, so he's going to have a bit of work to do in that middle sector. Tom Manley now chucks it into spoon curve, the way the car moving around as he turns it into that corner. A little bit of understeer on the way out as well. Have to sort of just wait for the car to answer as he comes down towards 130R now, and we'll see if he's going to get himself out of the bottom 5. It looks like he will. He's on a big improvement here, so this should be enough. This could even be the quickest time so far. Tom Manley chucks it into the Casio triangle now, not invalidating, keeps it clean. This looks like it's going to be a really clean lap from Tom Manley. Crosses the line now and goes on a 26.423. Behind him, Lucas Blakely goes 5th fastest, does manage to find some time there in that middle sector. Rasmussen on 26.4. He goes safely through for now. Ruben Pedreño finds some time as well. They're all finding time. Lenny Pepinter doesn't find enough to make it out of the drop zone there. Neither does Thomas Gall, who crosses the line previously behind as well. Jarno Watmir also finds some time again on a 26.4. Ronar finds a 26.4. Joris Kreutzen finds some time on a 26.5. A couple more still to come. Julian Klaffenbach makes it into Q3. Is there any more? Ido misses out by just a 2,000ths of a second. Istvan Pukki, did he do enough there to get through? It was very, very close, but Alvaro Carreton might just have been knocked out at the death there.
Yeah, no, we're seeing it on our screen. Istvan Pukki, P7 in this session, which means Alvaro Carreton, with him lagging out of the session, he is unfortunately eliminated from Q2, and I think he would have rather go out in 15th position than in 11th, because then he'd only need to triumph one driver to get himself into the next session. Thomas Ronhard, though, topping Q2, and how about that? Once again, for close gaps, the top 5 separated by 1/10 of a second. Klaffenbach in 6th, 7th, Pukki 8th is Blakely, Pedreño 9th, and Lee in 10th. Carreton, Ido, Gao, Pepinter, and Van Dyken this session. But wow, I mean, Brendan Lee, you know what? Fair play to him. I personally, Jack, I don't know about you, I thought he was going out.
Yeah, I'll admit that as well. I thought it was going to be, again, a bit of a premature call, but again, he's the guy with all the experience, so of course it worked out for him. So he makes it through into Q3, but a hat tip has to go to the 2 reserves of Joris Kreutz and Julian Klaffenbach are making a Q3 appearance here in PCF1. Especially Joris Kreutz is his first appearance ever in PCF1, and he's straight through to Q3. Massive, massive effort from those 2 guys. Well done, and we'll see how far they can go. Joris Kreutz was 5th fastest there, 0.08 of a second off of the fastest time, so maybe there could be a shock on here. But right now, it looks like it's a very tight battle for pole. It looks like it's between Ronhar, Ottmir, and Rasmussen for this pole position today, so very, very close.
Absolutely. We're about to head back into the game scene. You there now, and enough of me and Jack on your screens. You want to see the track and see the clouds beginning to part, so maybe the track temperatures are going to come up. How is that going to affect these 10 drivers in this session? They are Istvan Pukki, Freddie Rasmussen, Jarno Ottmir, Tom Manley, Joris Krozen, Thomas Ronhar, Brendan Lee, Lucas Blakely, Ruben Pedreño, and Julian Klaffenbach. Those are your 10 competitors fighting for pole position, and I want to hear from everyone in the live chat now who you think is going to be taking pole and what time you think that's going to be. Jack, I'm going to throw it over to you. Who's taking pole for you?
Oh, well, you can't do that to me. it's a tight one, but if I can predict the pole time, it's probably going to be, I'd imagine someone's going to find a 0.3, I would assume, but I don't know. It's a tough one to call. I think I'm going to go Rasmussen for this one and for the simple fact that a couple of seasons ago, Rasmussen stole pole out of nowhere here before. So I'm going to go Freddie Rasmussen for pole position here today. I think he's going to be my call. I was completely wrong last week, but listen, it's all about making those bold predictions. But for me, it looks like it's going to be Freddie Rasmussen, but I'm tentative on that.
Well, I mean, Freddie Rasmussen, it's a nice prediction. Of course, the reigning F1 Sim Racing champion. He bucked the trend of PSGL winners going on to win F1 Sim Racing, but we'll forgive him if he's able to put in a decent account for pole position. Myself, I'll go the other way. I'll go Thomas Ronhar. I never like to make the same prediction as my co-commentator. Let's see some of the predictions in the live chat. And immediately, another Dan is saying Jarno. McLean Garrett says Freddie for pole, Jarno for the win. A nice call in the chat for Julian Klaffenbach to take pole position from Fabian. 1 minute 25.317. We'll see how close you are come the end of this session. We'll find out in just 9 minutes time. Keep those predictions coming in. Jordan is saying Tom Manley for pole. Dayan Cord says Joris will get pole easily. Well, we're watching him out on circuit, the first man to take to a lap here in Q3. and we'll see what he can do. Is he going to live up to the hype that he has built up in Q1 and Q2 so far and deliver in Q3? We'll have to wait and see as he takes to the first sector.
Yeah, either way, I think he's done a very impressive job even getting to Q3 in the first place. No expectations, of course, no pressure. Just go out and drive, and he's putting on a great performance so far, as is Julian Klaffenbach in P10 at the moment. So we have the first few laps underway. Joris Kreutz and Julian Klaffenbach are the only two on a timed lap at the moment. The rest are all on out laps, with Tom Manley still in the pit lane. 31.6 for Joris Kreutz. Now, I would imagine this is still probably a used set of tyres for both of these guys. The sector times are not exactly lighting up or raising any eyebrows for Joris Kreutz, and I'd imagine Julian Klaffenbach waiting for him to cross that sector split 31.8. So these guys are just getting their eye in this Q3. You'd imagine these are not going to set the world alight, but unless there's unless I'm reading this very, very wrong, but Joris Kreutz looks like he is again quicker than Klaffenbach at the moment. But again, they're getting their eyes in, making sure that they can deliver it when it counts. Lucas Blakely as well, already an improved performance from last week. Of course, you would qualified P11 in Silverstone, made the right strategy call, but he's through to Q3 this time. Won round number 1. Tom Manley taking round number 2. No points for Blakely in the previous round due to that puncture. So he again just wants to get a clean qualifying under his belt. So there you go, 27.0 for Joris Kreutz, and that is definitely a scrub set of tyres, as they were about 0.7 of a second quicker in Q2 than that. So you could expect the times to come down rapidly, and we'll get an idea of who's on what tyre when they cross the start-finish line here. Julian Klaffenbach about to cross it now. He goes across the line, and you can see 27.5. So scrub sets of tyres for those guys, and we will wait to see what they can deliver next.
31.754 in the first sector for Lucas Blakely. This speaks to me like it's a scrub set as well, but maybe he made a mistake and he'll claw it all back in this second sector as he takes to the Spoon corner. Of course, Vettel and Verstappen had their crash all the way back in 2018. Hopefully, fingers crossed, once we get the collisions on for the race, there's going to be no such problems. But here comes Brendan up towards the second. Lucas up to. Did I say Brendan before? Fingers crossed. I hope I didn't, because then I'll look an absolute fool in front of all of the adoring PSGL viewers. But yeah, this is a scrub set of tyres as well for Lucas Blakely as he wrestles the car through the final sector. He'll come across the line very scruffy. 1 minute 27.782. When are we going to see the first representative lap times? I think we've got one on our hands. Freddie Rasmussen in towards the final sector. So 1 minute 10.069 in sector 1 and 2. This is looking good for him as Istvan Pukki puts his car into second position, I believe there. What is it going to be for Freddie Rasmussen as he rounds the final corner? He's been quick in qualifying thus far, and there it is, a 1 minute 26.396 to open up his account.
Absolutely. Brendan Lee as well was looking really good. He's only a couple of thousandths behind Rasmussen there. I was watching Brendan Lee's lap all the way through. Ruben Pedreño next to come across. He's a 1 minute 10.2, so not bad at all. Ruben Pedreño crosses the line, 26.6 for him. Next across the line is Thomas Ronau, who finds a 26.2, so a whole tenth of a second in front for the moment. Jarno Watmere on a 26.522. Next across the line, there's a couple more cars still left to go. Tom Manley finds a 26.37, slots in exactly a tenth of a second behind Thomas Ronau. So big lap there from Ronau, 26.276, and that's the marker he has laid down in this next part. So pressure's on for the rest of them. They've got to find a whole tenth of a second or more to beat Ronau, and that was and of course that we're assuming that Ronau doesn't improve on the next one.
I mean, that was an insane lap time from Thomas Ronau. That is unlike anything we've seen thus far this evening. Still 5 minutes left to go in this session, and I've got a big smile on my face. My prediction might for once actually come true. I never ever get it right, and I think Thomas Ronau, he could be delivering me the goods here this evening. But still, anything and everything will happen at the end of this session. Still a few drivers without representative lap times on the board. Joris Kreutz, Istvan Pukki, Julian Klaffenbach, and Lucas Blakely. We've got to watch out for him on a 27.7. Those four going to be sort of wild cards towards the end of this session. The top six, though, looking set at the moment. I think we're going to see that top three very, very tight towards the end of this qualifying session. Brendan Lee and Jarno Otmir, outsiders looking in. Rumpedreño sort of in no man's land at the minute. He's going to want to try and climb up the order. This is what I love about qualifying. There's 10 different stories, 10 different narratives, but only one of them is going to get the happy ending that they deserve at the end of this 4 minutes.
Absolutely, yeah. Ronar, of course, trying to go for 2 poles in a row. Of course, he took pole at Silverstone, but wasn't able to convert it in the end. And of course, it was Tom Manley, who's the man who's not currently on the front row of the grid, who was running him close all the way. And Tom Manley, of course, taking the victory in the end. But I'd imagine there's some guys behind who've got some pace to burn. Freddie Rasmussen is well known for pulling a lap out right at the death. We've got Brendan Lee as well, looking very quick on the 26.40. Jarno Otmir, you'd feel he's got a bit more. He did actually manage a 26.4 in the previous session, so we know Jarno's got more pace in the bag, and we're sort of the unknowns is what makes it exciting. You got Joris Kreutzen, István Pukki, Julian Klaffenbach, and Lucas Blakely, who have not set representative times, but we know that they can get close in amongst it there. So 3 minutes on the clock. We're going to see the final runs of Q3 here in Japan. Can Thomas Ronar go back to back, or can somebody else take that pole position here in Japan? It's going to be very, very tight. The one car making their way down the pit lane now in their bright green livery car. Julian Klaffenbach will be the first car to come out onto the circuit, and of course he's sort of the wild card in this one. The 27.5, not representative at all. And Joris Kreutzen as well, a 27.0, not representative. Neither is Lucas Blakely, neither is István Pukki. So it's anybody's game for pole position here.
Absolutely. I mean, 2.5 minutes left to go in this session, and the first man out on circuit is Julian Klaffenbach, really bursting onto the scene. He's still a young driver, 14, 15 or 16, one of those ages where he's not quite old enough to race in F1 sim racing, but he knows that he has got plenty of teams watching him, of course, already a part of the R8G fold. And we'll see what he can do. His teammate, well, multiple of his teammates actually, Joris Kreutzen, Tycho Hardy, making an appearance here this evening. These organizations, they are watching these young guys, not just the, the very best of the best, like Jarno Otmir, Freddie Rasmussen, Thomas Ronhaar, because we know how good they are, but we don't quite know how good the likes of Julian and Joris are. They need every little bit of screen time that they need, and they need to impress on the night. Julian Klaffenbach will be the first one to put us on a lap with Joris Kreutzen in tandem. How about that for a very intimidating driver to your rear? The current reigning F1 sim racing champion, Freddie Rasmussen, is also right behind you on circuit. If I look towards the back of the field, who is that? The last driver out on circuit. It is István Pukki. We've got to watch out for him because he will technically have the best track conditions right towards the end of this session. But here we go, Jack, for the final time in Q3. The laps are underway. It's Julian Klaffenbach headed down and towards turn number 1.
Absolutely. So we've got a lot to keep our eye on here, folks. We've got 10 cars vying for pole position and keeping an eye on all these sectors. Julian Klaffenbach gets us underway. Joris Kreutzen there in P7. Behind him. So this is the 2 young pretenders who are making their debuts in PCF1 here in Japan this season, trying to cause an upset really and see what they can get out of this. Coming up the hill now, Julian Klaffenbach looking clean in that first sector so far now, up towards Degner 1 and Degner 2. What are these sectors looking like? Crosses the line, 31.57. Now that is competitive at the very least. He gets a little bit out of shape going into Degner 2. Might have lost a bit of time as Blakely spun it. He's not going to be in contention. He's gone off in the first sector. So Lucas Blakely will be starting 10th in this Grand Prix, so just 1 position higher than he managed last week. So Blakely is out of contention for this pole position then. Julian Klaffenbach coming up towards Spoon Corner now, chucks it in to the left hand of the car, really complaining as he tries to turn it in there, goes get an understeer on the exit and a little bit of oversteer on the exit. It's a bit of a scruffy lap so far for Julian Klaffenbach as he heads down towards 130R for the last time now, 110.2, about a tenth off, or about a tenth off Rasmussen, you would say, in this one, but it's still a very decent lap from Julian Klaffenbach. Chucks it into the Casio triangle, turns into the left, gets on the power on the way out. I'd say it's going to be probably a top 5 position for Julian Klaffenbach here as he crosses the line just outside in P6 on a 26.563. Joris Kreutzen goes to pole. What is that from the young man?
Wow, immediately triumphed by Freddie Rasmussen, but there are still multiple other drivers in behind. What about that from Joris Krozen? Here comes Ruben Pedreño up towards the line now. What's it going to be for the Spaniard? It's the second row of the grid provisionally. Tom Manley towards the line next. He will get himself ahead of the Spaniard. We'll watch Thomas Ronhaar through the final couple of corners. Jan Watmans come across the line. No improvement from him. It is just Thomas Ronhaar, and it's Van Pookie to the line for the Dutchman. A 1 minute 26.215 to put himself on pole position, unless Istvan Pukki has anything to say about it. He'll come towards the line. It's P8 for the Hungarian, and that means Thomas Ronhaar on pole position, Freddie Rasmussen in second. But I think the name that will be ringing in the ears of the live chat, Joris Krozen, starting on the second row of the grid. Sublime, Jack.
What a performance! I mean, this is his first ever qualifying session in PCF1, and he's just put it P3. What a job! Thomas Ronaldo goes back-to-back pole positions. Rasmussen will share the front row. So at least, Dan, you got your prediction right, but the two of us got the top two, so we'll take that out of it.
Yeah.
Joris Krozen takes third. Tom Manley will start from fourth. Ruben Pedreño, what a great effort from Ruben Pedreño as well, P5. Brendan Lee, Jarno Watmere, Istvan Pukki, Julian Klaffenbach, and Lucas Blakely, who spun it on his qualifying lap, will start from P10. Unbelievable from Joris Krozen. First ever qualifying session in PCF1. He gets to Q3 and puts it on the second row of the grid, only beaten by Freddie Rasmussen and Thomas Ronhaar. That is a star of the future.
I mean, we always see sort of the rise. I feel like they come every single game. We start to see the rise of a young star. You know, we've had Thomas Ronhaar in the past couple of games. Otis Lawrence, I believe, is the most recent one. Could Joris Krozen be the next driver to potentially make a splash on the F1 sim racing scene? Are we going to have multiple of these drivers come through? Julian Klaffenbach, Tycho Hardy, those guys very impressive as well, but none of them so far holding a candle to Joris Krozen. I mean, P3, what a time from him there. You know, quicker than multiple F1 sim racing champions. Brendan Lee and Jan Watman, I think, going to be a bit disappointed with their qualifying times. They seem to have dropped the ball on their last laps, but Lucas Blakely, I mean, what has gone wrong with him there? Eliminated in Q2 last time out, got a puncture right at the end of the race, and now spinning on his flying lap when you need to be on top form right at the last runs of the session. And he's binned it. Very unfortunate for Lucas Blakely. Starting from P10, Jack, at around a track where it's pretty difficult to overtake.
Yeah, it's true. But of course, the conditions worked in his favour last time, coming from 11th on the grid to an almost podium with a 40 again. The puncture, we mentioned it again. But it seems like qualifying is not his strong point at the moment. It seems like, anyway, it doesn't seem to be going quite right for him. But nonetheless, we know that his race pace is always superb, so we can't exactly rule him out just yet. But it will be interesting to see how the younger guys perform now. Joris Krozen and Julian Klaffenbach, they've shown that they're quick in qualifying. Let's see if that translates into race pace in this next part. Of course, that's all it's all about. It's all about, you can perform in qualifying, but the race is where the points are as well. But this is why we love league racing, because we get a chance for these young guys to come in and show what they can do. And I'm sure there's some team representatives now looking at that going, maybe, well, RAG are going to be going, well, good job we signed them when we did. Because they've both their drivers with the Q3, Julian Klaffenbach and Joris Krozen. So they're certainly ones for the future. Neither of them are old enough currently to compete in F1 sim racing, but I'm sure they're going to be aiming for challengers like before. And of course, Otis Lawrence had to wait about a year and a half before he was able to do it as well. So the last time we probably saw a performance like that was when we saw Otis Lawrence burst onto the scene. So now there's going to be some eyebrows raised.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just judging as well by the reactions in the live chat, it is wonderful to see when we sort of see the rise of a new young driver, especially one like Joris Krozen, where me personally, this is no disrespect to him, I didn't know who he was before this game. You know, you would know Thomas Ronhaar and Otis Lawrence from their time racing on the Xbox side of things, but it feels like Joris Krozen, he's come out of absolutely nowhere. I was familiar with the name Julian Klaffenbach before. I've commentated multiple times over on Tycho Hardy, but Joris Krozen really has come out of nowhere, and it is fantastic to see all of the people in the live chat sort of, rallying together and supporting these young guys. And someone's shouting at me for saying nowhere. Listen, I'm not keeping up too much with the league racing scene at the minute, aside from the likes of PSGL. But Joris Krozon, I mean, wow. What a showing from him, and I just can't wait to get into this race, Jack. Let's talk about the circuit. 27 laps around Suzuka. It's a very challenging track. Of course, drivers not too happy with it on this F124 game. We'll leave it at not happy, but that could make for a very interesting Grand Prix, given that there is also a chance of rain. And when it rains in Japan, it pours.
It did, yeah. It did last week as well. But it certainly does in Japan. We've seen it before. But the wet conditions made it very interesting last week. Of course, if you did miss it, please do go and watch it. I'll keep going on about it. But it was probably one of the greatest races we've seen in the modern era of PSGL. With the conditions, the drivers had to make a quick call on whether they go on wets or whether they go on intermediates. Some decided on wets, some decided on intermediates. Nobody knew which one was the right one until the intermediates started overtaking everybody. But nobody knew it was that in-between phase, and we love when that happens as well. But let's see what happens here. Some of the drivers will be hoping that it stays the way it is. I'm assuming guys like Thomas Ronnar will be hoping that it stays dry throughout, because the wet conditions did not work for him at all last week. Qualified on pole and went backwards off the start almost as well. And of course, Tom Manley taking the victory there as well. Lucas Blakely, he's starting from P10. Of course, he took the win in Bahrain, so he'll be looking to try and get back on the board again, or at least get some points this week, because no points last week. We do have a championship fight on our hands as well, and every point is going to count towards the end of the season as well. But either way, we're going to be in for a cracker of a race. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, standings are on your screen at the minute. Look at how tight things are at the very top of the order. Jan Otmer on 18 points, Lucas Blakely and Tom Manley and Brendan Lee all joint second, third and fourth on 16 points. And then Danny Berejnay a little bit further back behind in fifth on 13. I mean, just judging by how all of their qualifyings went, Tom Manley is starting the highest out of that pack. But I believe Brendan Lee and Jan Otmer are starting alongside each other, sort of in that lower end of the top 10. Of course, Lucas Blakely had his spin in his final qualifying lap. That'll start him in P10. But all of the championship runners relatively close to one another heading into this one. And then at the very pinnacle, we've got three drivers who have yet to make an impact on this championship fight. Freddie Rasmussen, you can see on your screens, is down in 14th position on just 2 points. Thomas Ronhart yet to get off the mark here in season 37. Granted, it's only been 2 races thus far. They start at the very top of the order. And of course, Joris Krozon making his debut this evening. He's yet to score any points as well. And Jack, that screams to me, given how difficult it is to overtake around this circuit, that it screams, it shouts, it shrieks at me that we are going to have another driver potentially entering the championship fray.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, I think whoever is going to take this title is going to be all consistency based, because everyone's going to go through different waves of form. Well, you can see Otmer is top of the championship, again, by just 2 points. Granted, Blakely, of course, taking the victory in round 1, and Manley taking the victory in round number 2. Both of them on 16 points. Of course, the point system in PSGL is different to the real F1. It is 16 points for a victory. Probably the thing that jumps out at me, of course, is that Ronar's qualified on pole twice, still hasn't scored any points in this one. So we've got now he's going to want to change that as well, because he qualified on pole last week at Silverstone, came out with no points. Again, and that was simply because he also made the wrong call on the tyres at the start. Started on the wets, they were the wrong tyre to be on, and that was, of course, went backwards after that. But of course, now he's on pole in Japan. He's going to want to put that to bed and try and get some points on the board. But it is telling, of course, that you've got some guys like that who are on 0 points. Of course, up until last week as well, Freddie Rasmussen also had no points as well. And of course, there's going to be waves of form, of course, but it's going to be pure consistency is what is going to get this championship as well. So let's keep our eyes on that. But either way, it's going to be very interesting, because we've got guys who are fighting for a championship and guys who are appearing in PCF1 who don't care and are just out there to prove themselves.
Yeah, they are purely here to get the screen time and you know, show themselves that they are able to fight with the big dogs of PSGL and F1 sim racing. Before we head into the lobby, I can see all the drivers are beginning to ready up, so we'll have just a quick look at the team standings, because we've not yet been able to do that, and already this is going to be a bit outdated, because what's going to happen with Alpine? Jarno Opmeer no longer there. I mean, he's made the move to Red Bull. I believe, at least in this, he's on the grid as racing for Red Bull. But we'll just read it out as it is. Alpine at the minute topping the standings, with most of Jarno Opmeer's points making up that 23-point tally. Williams are in second on 18, joint with Red Bull, and then McLaren just 1 point back from them in fourth, with Kick Sauber being a further point back in fifth on 16. And then there is three teams, Ferrari, Mercedes and Racing Bulls RB, as we'll just call them for short. They are on 14. Aston Martin and Haas struggling at the minute, but yeah, Alpine leading the way, although with Jarno Opmeer making the jump to Red Bull, that's definitely gonna spice things up in that team's standings. I think in a few weeks' time, Jack, it will all begin to make sense. Once we've actually been able to digest this, because we only found it out this afternoon that Jarno Opmeer was going to Red Bull, and it's still surreal to think about. It's mental, and now finally I can also have a look at the weather. It's a little bit cloudy up ahead, Jack.
It is, so it's threatening. It's threatening clouds is what we've got there in the background. So we'll wait and see. Maybe there's more rain on the horizon for PSGL. It delivered last week, but of course in the opposite direction. It rained for pretty much the entire race, but it did get progressively less rainy throughout the entire race. But let's see. This could be crazy stuff. But it's anybody's guess as to who's going to take a victory here. Thomas Ronnar is going to look to try and get himself first victory of the season, and we will see if anybody else can spring a surprise from further back, because we had Freddie Rasmussen starting from the back of the grid last time. He started 19th and 20th for Josh Ito. Both of them ended up finishing inside the points at the end of the race, so there's that as well. But it does look pretty dark out there, so don't be surprised if we see rain on the horizon.
I mean, I'm quite nervous for these clouds, but this also does happen quite often in these F1 games. It just stays cloudy for the entire time, and then all of a sudden it will change up. But we'll have to wait and see what happens here, because the 5 red lights are on and we are underway. Thomas Ronnar leading Freddie Rasmussen in towards that first corner. Joris Krozen getting ahead of Tam Manley very early on, but at the front of the things, there's Freddie Rasmussen jumping Thomas Ronnar in towards that first corner on a set of the medium compound of tyres. Thomas Ronnar on the hards, who have that slower grip from the start as they all file their way into the first sector. Very threatening stuff as they weave their way through the S's around this circuit. Freddie Rasmussen with a dream start, Jack Canan.
Yeah, look at Joris Kreutzen nibbling at the back of Ronnar as well as they come out towards Degner 1 and Degner 2. The hard tires not getting up the temperature too quickly, and Kreutzen eats him up into the first Degner there, so now he's into P2. But yes, the hard compound tyres for Thomas Ronnar got a bunch of wheel spin off the line, couldn't deal with the start from Rasmussen, and we've got 2 drivers on the medium tyres in the top 2. Then we got Ronnar on the hards, Brendan Lee's on the hard compound tyre as well. Jarno Opmeer is also opted for the hard compound tyre, so they're going through a pain train right now as they try and get their tyres up to temperature and try to make them last as they make their way up in towards Spoon Curve for the first time. Rasmussen goes into P1. Joris Kreutzen to a wide moment for Klaffenbach in the middle of the Spoon Curve there, and he loses the position to Isfan Pukki further back. So now the guys on the hards are going to want to try and hang on to these guys up front for as long as possible, as Tom Manley is now going to go up the inside at 130R. That's tight, and he gets through and manages to hang on to that position. So Ronnar is just going to have to try and stay with them here, because those hards are not up to temperature yet as more guys fight for position behind. But after lap 1, Rasmussen, Kreutzen, Manley, your top 3.
Oh, here's Jarno Opmeer looking to the outside line of Julian Klaffenbach. Jarno on a set of the hards. He was very squirrely, and look at that. Look how close these drivers are to contact as they head in towards that first corner. It's going to be Lucas Blakely down the inside of Julian Klaffenbach on his set of the hard compound of tyres. It's been a difficult getaway for the Flying Scot, but he's been able to make up that position, get back into P11, and he's knocking on the door of that top 10. But it's been a brilliant start all around. No one has lost their head. No one has lost their front wing, I think, most importantly, as now Julian Klaffenbach, I hope he's not lost his front wing, because he is beginning to lose a lot of time now to Xander Van Dyken heading through the Degner 1 and 2. It looks all okay from that very fluorescent green car as they head in towards the hairpin. There is Lucas Blakely trying to defend from Julian Klaffenbach, soaring around the outside. Seems no such problems for the young Austrian driver as they head in towards Spoon Corner for the second time here this evening. Very gutsy racing early on, Jack.
Yeah, they're trying to make positions early on and try to get themselves a good position in the train. Lucas Blakely trying to hang on with those hard tyres. Xander Van Dyken trying to get by himself. Pedreño the next to make a move on Ronar in towards 130R. Does it before they even get there. And Ronar not fighting that too hard. Lets him drop back into P5. So now he does have to defend from the next car behind, because the next car behind him is his teammate Brendan Lee right behind. So I suppose that's the benefit, is that it's Brendan Lee, Thomas Ronar, the first two cars on the hard compound tyre. You can see further back, two cars getting very close to one another. You got Otmir and Ido close together. Different strategies, of course. Otmir on the hards, Ido on the mediums, Istvan Pukki in front on the mediums as well. So now these guys are going to be trying to hang on to the train, but of course they probably have got through the worst of the strategy. You could see how bad and how hard those compounded tyres were to get up to temperature. But now they're seeming to settle in a little bit more, trying to hang on to the cars in front. But again, perfect strategy from Rasmussen. Got up the inside of turn 1, got the start, and is now leading this race out front. But he's got Jars Kreutzen keeping good tabs on him out front as well. But it will be interesting, an interesting strategy split across the field here.
Yeah, absolutely. It is crucial for the likes of Thomas Ronhart and Brendan Lee to work together to keep with the top four. Jarno Otmir involved in a bit of a melee at the minute. He's feeling pressure from his former Alpine teammate here in PSGL. No such affinity anymore. Jarno is struggling to keep up with the medium runner of Istvan Pukki, but in the next few laps, those hards should come up to temperature. I think it's just critical that he keeps slipstream to the Hungarian in front of him, because then, of course, Josh Ido, Tamas Gau, Julian Klaffenbach maybe are going to be able to mount a challenge on the Flying Dutchman as they fly through 130R. It seems like Jarno Otmir has been able to bridge that gap ever so slightly, much to the annoyance of Josh Ido, because I've been keeping my eye on him. He's been all over the rear of Jarno Otmir for a very long time. Well, I say a very long time. The entire Grand Prix at this point. 3 laps in thus far. We're now on lap number 4, and he has not been able to get through on Jarno Otmir and catch up to the rest of the train as Xander Van Dyken and Alvaro Carreton swap positions further back behind. It's looking like at the front of the order, Jack, we'll turn our attention to them for the first time in a little while. It's all stabilised for the time being, and I think most crucially, Thomas Ronhart, he is still right behind Ruben Pedreño.
He hasn't lost a lot of time. That's very crucial for his race, that they stay with these guys. Ronnar and Brendan Lee, both on the hards. Jarno Otmir as well, also on the hard compound tyre in P8 as well. Blakely hasn't been able to make the same progress where he is, but he is sticking with those cars in front at the very least. And then the next car behind, Alvaro Carreton, made a move there on Xander Van Dyken to get up there as Thomas Gall goes down the inside of Julian Klaffenbach, and that's P10 for him on the cards now. So good move from Thomas Gall, and he's got behind now Josh Ido. And the next car up the road, Istvan Pukki, is now nibbling at the back of Brendan Lee. Of course, he's on the mediums as well as Istvan Pukki, so trying to make use of them as he comes down towards 130R once again on lap 4 of 27. Does he make a move? I don't think he's going to try, but he is going to just stick behind for the very least. But you can see there is a noticeable gap. Istvan Pukki back to Jarno Otmir is 9/10 of a second, as now Istvan Pukki thinks about a lunge on Brendan Lee. Doesn't quite make it, but Jarno Otmir is very dangerously close to losing that DRS, but that attempted move from Istvan Pukki actually helped him out of there.
Yeah, here comes Istvan Pukki once again down the straight, utilising some of the battery. He'll look to the inside of Brendan Lee, side by side through the first corner. There you go, Brendan Lee not taking that one lying down at all. But Istvan Pukki has been able to come up trumps in that one. He split the 2 kick Sauber cars. How is that going to affect their strategy in this race? And of course, teammates on paper doesn't actually equate to teammates in the game. That is one thing we've got to work out as this race carries on, because with these F1 wildcards, your pit box is absolutely random. And if you pit at the same time as someone who you don't know is your teammate in the game, that could really ruin your race. So these guys, they've got to be very careful when coming into the pit lane, because, Jack, there is plenty of chance for something to go wrong and for someone to get held up.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure they would have tried to at least work it out by now. Their engineers would have tried to figure it out as they come through into the next part of the session. But we haven't had that issue come up any time yet, but we'll see if it does have an influence later on. But we will have, now I would imagine that it is linked to the qualifying position, so we'll have keep an eye on that throughout the race. But nonetheless, it hasn't caused an issue thus far, so let's not try and jinx it as they come into the Casio Triangle on the end of lap number 5. As we come through, Rasmussen leads the race. Blakely makes a move now on Thomas Gall into the final chicane, gets it done, moves back into P11. So the hard maybe now starting to show their true worth as they come across the start-finish line. Klaffenbach getting close to Josh Ito towards turn 1. Does he fancy a look? He has a little look in the mirrors, but doesn't have a go at getting past the Welshman there as they come through, as Lenny Pepinter chucks at the inside of our carrots on, just about makes it and gets through now. But now you can kind of see the hards are starting to come into their own now. Ron are getting closer and closer and closer to the top 4 here. So now the medium's starting to wear a little bit. The hards look like they're starting to come into their own.
Yeah, no, this is now where Thomas Ronhaar, he is beginning to excel, and I'd imagine the same is going to go for Brendan Lee and Jarno Otmir. And I think crucially, none of them have lost DRS yet. The DRS train, the lead DRS runners stem all the way from Freddie Rasmussen down to Tamas Gall, Lenny Pepinter, Alvaro Carreton. They've got to do their best to catch up to the rest of the field, but the top 12 all in one big DRS train, and I think that is going to benefit the hard runners the absolute most, because they've got through that difficult period where they are the slower drivers. They are on the slower tyres than all the medium runners, but now they are at least a point where they're equal, maybe slightly better, and as the laps go on by, those hards are going to phase into this Grand Prix very nicely. We're watching Thomas Ronhaar on the back of Ruben Pedreño. Could have gone for a move up the inside in towards the Casio Triangle, but very smart not to. It's only lap number 6 as he gets a snap of oversteer off the exit. It's only lap number 6, heading on towards lap number 7. Still plenty of time left to go in this race as Julian Klaffenbach, further off in your picture, gets through on Josh Ito. This race, Jack, is only hotting up.
Certainly is, yeah. You can see now Thomas Ronhaar is going to have Istvan Pukki for company now as he comes through the Senna S's once again. But again, medium tyres are on that car, so not really a fight for him. But he'll have the Hungarian with him very, very soon. Pedreño getting a little snap of oversteer coming through the top of the hill there, so he's trying to hang on to the top 3, and you can see Tom Manley is getting very close to the young Dutchman in front of him. It's sort of a concertina effect that's going on right now. The top 12 are all in DRS of each other. Then Lenny Pepinter 1.4 back, as you can see Ronhaar chucks it down the inside of the hairpin. He's starting to try to make moves now, but is that going to cost him time rather than try to make a position here? Ronhaar side by side now with Ruben Pedreño coming up towards Spoon Curve. Pedreño lifts off slightly, lets him through as they go through, and he does eventually make it through, but Ronhaar makes the moves of the hards very much in their own now.
I mean, that could have gotten ugly if they went side by side through Spoon corner. Ruben Pedreño knew that wasn't on the cards. He couldn't afford to go side by side with Thomas Ronhaar, and now he has got Istvan Pukki for company, but he is going to go back on the attack on Thomas Ronhaar in towards the Casio Triangle. They go. Pedreño later on the brakes, but he's compromised his line off the exit. Now here comes Istvan Pukki, little bit of a snap of oversteer off the exit at the corner. Brendan Lee looking to get involved in the battle. Josh Ito has come into the pit lane. Ruben Pedreño, after trying to go for the move back on Thomas Ronhaar, has resulted in him losing 2 positions to Istvan Pukki and Brendan Lee. And I think if he just sat in behind Thomas Ronhaar, didn't go for that move, he could have been okay. He would have at least kept the position on Brendan Lee, but down into P7. It's been I'd say a slight error in his judgment, but still, Jack, plenty of time to make up for those mistakes.
Yeah, mistake from Ronhaar at the top of the hill there. Lost the rear end of the car. I don't know how he's hanging on to that rear end as he comes around that corner. There was a little bit of contact on the exit. There's a little move going on in the background. Otmir on Pedreño next. How on earth has he kept it in a straight line round the outside? Jarno Otmir on Pedreño, and he makes it through. I think he's going to need a change of overalls there as Jarno Otmir. That was very, very close to faster. Thomas Ronhaar now trying to get past Tom Manley. Not quite close enough, but Otmir makes the move, but I think he might need a second just to get the heart rate down after that one.
Gee, you know what? I think you know what, man. He might have drank a few too many cases of Red Bull on his very first day. Maybe got a little bit excited about joining the new team. And Ruben Pedreño continues to fall down the order because he's got Lucas Blakely around the outside of Julian Klaffenbach. What a move for Lucas Blakely there. In towards the corner they go. Can he get Ruben Pedreño as well? Tom Manley and Thomas Ronald, they swap positions. Contact between Ruben Pedreño and Lucas Blakely. Wow, what a move from Lucas. Gutsy, brave and bold around the outside of 130R. Made it stick through there and went for the move once more. Fantastic stuff from the steaming Scot as more battles unfold up ahead. This is sensational on lap number 9.
There's 2 world-class overtakes there for a moment. Istvan Pukki decided he didn't fancy losing the best overtake award. Went round the outside of Manley into turn 1 and ended up losing it back again. But Blakely, brave, around the outside of 130R, tried it again into the Casio Triangle, and he gets himself into P8. Now he's behind Jarno Watmere as they come into Degner 1 and Degner 2. Now this is going to get very feisty. It's all hotting up now as the hards and mediums are sort of equaled out now. Some more moves being made through the field. Klaffenbach, and you see Pedreño has dropped from P5 to P10 all of a sudden. So that is how quickly it can change. And it's 2 seconds back to the next train. So it's all hotting up here. Ronar did manage to move into P3 now, so he's on the attack on the top 2. Joris Kreutzen now has got Ronar behind him. Manley behind now on the mediums, and Brendan Lee will now fancy a chance at getting past those 2 maybe very, very soon. But Ronar may be the first to do it. Coming up towards 130R inside of Joris Kreutzen. Does he fancy the move? Looks on the inside. Kreutzen leaves him room, and Ronar goes through into P2 on the hard compound tire. So no real fight put up in that situation. No other moves made, but you sort of feel now the move is inevitable as he heads down towards turn 1. Manley pits from the mediums, but here comes Thomas Ronar. Freddie Rasmussen in front of him now towards turn number 1. Rasmussen doesn't defend it, and Ronar will move to the inside, and the hard compound tires do come back to him eventually, and he retakes the lead.
After losing that position on lap number 1, turn number 1, Thomas Ronald regains the lead of this Grand Prix, and the undercuts are coming out. Josh Ito has already pitted 2 laps ago. Tom Manley and Ruben Pedreño, they are going to exit onto the circuit, and I wonder, is Josh Ito going to be able to overtake them? He gets through on Pedreño, and he's right behind on the coattails of Tom Manley. So the undercut has worked out very nicely for Josh Ito. He's got himself up a decent amount in track position terms, considering Tom Manley was fighting for a podium throughout the entirety of this race. Josh Ito was in and around that 10th, 11th position. Good stuff from the Welshman, but of course his tyres, they're definitely going to feel the age later on in the Grand Prix. So it's a short-term gain, long-term loss from Josh Ito, but he's making it work for the time being. Lap number 10 of 27. You've got to think with the undercuts coming out, Rasmussen, Krozen, Pukki and Klaffenbach, Jack, they've all got to think, at least think, about coming in the next couple of laps.
Certainly do. Joris Kreutzig getting very close as it comes through 130R. They're actually being patient with each other. None of them want to overtake each other, but they closed up so much to Ronar. They ended up, both of them had to lift out of it as they came through there. Now Kreutzig is going to go for the undercut, comes in. That's probably a smart call from the Dutchman there. Istvan Pukki as well follows him in as they head down into position. And Rasmussen swaps with Ronar again, so the 2 of them working with each other slightly as they come down into the first corners. So back to the lead goes Rasmussen. Pepinter moves past Caraton at the same time. But now we're going to watch and see where Manley comes out relative to those guys in front as they've just pitted on their way down towards turn number 1. Now Kreutzen and Pukki on their way out of the pit lane. You can see in the background Manley is going to arrive very quickly, but Ito's going to pass him. And you can see Ito's going to go try around the outside into turn 1. Very, very close. Contact made. Wasn't able to do the job. Very, very close. But Pukki just about hangs on to that position there, and that was crucial for him.
I mean, Josh Ito, he's going to be able to harass Istvan Pukki for at least the next sector or so, because of course he's already got the temperature into those hard compounder tires, and it normally takes a lap or 2 for the hards to really get into their groove. So Josh Ito can still apply the pressure to the Hungarian, and you can see he's all over the rear of him through the Degner 1 and 2 section, but very close. I think too close for comfort, really, for the pair of them in towards that first corner. Josh Ito is going to settle in behind Istvan Pukki, but I think crucially ahead of Tom Manley, utilising that DRS he is also going to be able to receive the DRS ahead of, well, in behind Istvan Pukki, and that means Tom Manley is going to have a very difficult time of making a move stick. Freddie Rasmussen at the front of the order. He will come into the pit lane, making it a kick 1 and 2 for the time being. Thomas Ronhard leads Brendan Lee, Jan Watmere in third, Lucas Blakely in fourth, and Julian Klaffenbach, very interestingly, Jack, he's decided to stay out on very old medium tyres.
He's trying to stick with these guys, trying to go long on them. Rasmussen on his way back down the pit lane now. It'll be interesting to see where he comes out relative to Joris Kreutzen, because he went for the undercut, and I think it's going to work out for the Dutchman. It's going to be very, very close towards the first corner. Rasmussen, though, won't have the tire temperature. Kreutzen will, but just about hangs on. Good job from Rasmussen. He overcuts and manages, well, not quite overcuts, but he managed to hang on to his position by going a lap later, and Kreutzen not able to get in front, but very, very close, and a decent job done by Rasmussen there. Knew what he had to do and did it enough to stay in front of the Dutchman behind him now. So now it's a race of two halves now. You got Ronhard, Brendan Lee, Jarno Watmere, Lucas Blakely, and everybody who started on the hards are now going to try to make them work. Benham on the move as well. Remember, Benham started from the back of the grid, so he's trying to do something here. Makes past Tycho Hardy into Spoon Curve. Klaffenbach, though, is going to probably have to pit this lap. He's the last car out on the medium tyres at the moment, so he's stuck with the lead train for a decent length of time, in fairness to him, and he's going to probably have to try and get those mediums off now and see where he's going to come out relative to the rest of the cars behind. Let's watch as he comes through the final corner. He's going to pit this lap. He certainly does. Comes in and he's going to relieve himself of those medium tyres. So now, as we go across the start-finish line, Brendan Lee is going to swap with his teammate, and a new leader at the front of the order is Brendan Lee.
Yeah, nice to see from Brendan Lee, and as Julian Klaffenbach comes into the pit lane, he will file out behind, I think, a big gaggle of cars as it stands, but we'll have to wait and see. Freddie Rasmussen is your net race leader, Joris Kreutzen a net P2, and Josh Edo making his undercut work and getting the fastest lap to boot there, a 1 minute 29.771. I'd imagine once these hard runners pit onto a set of the mediums very, very soon, then they will find their way to much quicker and greater heights. Of course, you are able to go faster as you get later on in the session due to the fact that you've got less fuel, your car is lighter, and so in theory and by practice it goes faster. And so we'll see the likes of Brendan Lee, Thomas Ronhard, Jan Watmere, all of these guys who are on the hards now. They will be fighting for the fastest lap later on in the race. But Jack, I think we've now entered sort of a little bit of a lull period. There's not too many drivers battling for position. We've got three very distinct trains. Got the lead four at the minute, then Lenny Pepinter leading a train all the way down to Philip Presnader in 11th, and then you've got the drivers who have already pitted, led by Freddie Rasmussen. So at this point in time, I think we just got to wait for these pit stops to be made very, very soon, and then we should get into that action that we saw maybe 4-5 laps ago.
And the great thing for Rasmussen and these guys behind, well, especially for Rasmussen, is that he's got clean air. He's come out in completely clean air. 12 and almost 13 seconds of clean air in front. A little bit of movement going on behind, actually. Edo and Tom Manley are about to go out of here. This is essentially for a position on the podium here. Tom Manley trying to outbrake Edo into the final chicane, goes round the outside, turns to the inside for the next corner. That is a nice move from the young Englishman. He gets himself back into position now, and Istvan Pukki may fancy a chance of getting past at the same time as well, down towards turn one. Is he going to have to over speed? He will. Inside for Istvan Pukki. Does he have enough to get alongside the Welshman and get the car stopped? It almost contacted the car in front, and Pukki moves through into what is, for the moment at least, a P4 position.
I like that from Istvan Pukki, really committed to going for that one. A lot of these drivers, sometimes they can suffer from that indecisiveness of, oh, do I want to go for the move? Do I want to play it safe? But Istvan Pukki, he knew from the very start of that straight, I'm going to take this position. I will get ahead of Josh Edo, and he's made that one work in towards now a net P4 in this race. He's knocking on the door of the net top 3, but Tom Manley is a very formidable opponent, coming off a win last time out in Silverstone. I think Istvan Pukki, if he thinks he's going to have an easy time getting through on Tom Manley, he's got another thing coming for him on lap number 14 of 27. This time by, we will reach the halfway point of this Grand Prix, and the hard runners are going to start to think about when it is time to come into the pit lane. We saw the longest stint being 12 laps. Wow, Lucas Blakely, 14 laps into this Grand Prix. He is going to take off those hards. I say it's a very early call from Lucas, but he's going for that undercut. We'll see if it works for the Steaming Scot.
Absolutely, yeah. It is early, but you saw how much it worked for Josh Ito, at least for track position. But it's now the pace is starting to fall off for Josh Ito. But now Lucas Blakely, the first car to move on to the mediums, he's got a long stint on those ahead of him as he heads down. You can see, look at the train of cars coming past there as they go across the line. Now he's going to come out just behind Julian Klaffenbach, but of course, we know how quick those mediums are early on, so it's all about now. How quick can he make them work and try to make track position up here? As there's a little bit of contact in front. Klaffenbach is almost pushing Pedreño through the corners in the Senna S's and is getting a little bit impatient behind the Spaniard here as he comes up the hill now. 2-lap difference, and Klaffenbach's absolutely all over him. All that is allowing is Lucas Blakely has absolutely flown up to the back of them here, and we'll see now if he can make some moves here, because this is almost reminiscent of Silverstone with the two strategies on. I sense a dive bomb coming from Blakely here. Yes, there it is, down the inside into the hairpin. Now going to have the traction on the exit to try and get away from Klaffenbach here. Needs to make moves early on those medium tyres and not lose as much time as he can. They're going to just about get in front of Klaffenbach. That's a good move from Lucas Blakely.
That's brave stuff from Lucas there, but he needs to go for those gutsy moves very early on this stint, and we know from earlier on in this Grand Prix he is not averse for going for those brave lurching overtakes. We saw around the outside, I believe, on Julian Klaffenbach earlier on. Pepinter and Caraton decide to pit as the two leaders swap once again. Thomas Ronhart and Brendan Lee happy on their set of tyres. Let's check back in with Lucas Blakely, because he's gone through once again on Ruben Pedreño, and he'll be all over the back of Josh Ito, who's very old hard tyres at this point are definitely not going to be doing him any good. But Lucas might have to look in his mirrors, because look at Julian Klaffenbach going for it once again on Ruben Pedreño. This time he's made the move stick. That was about a lap and a half in the works. Nice stuff there from the young Austrian.
Absolutely. Now, next up on Blakely's list is Josh Ito, and look at 8-lap-old hards versus fresh medium tyres. It's just going to be a case of when, not if, as he makes his way up towards at the front of the order. Now, you saw Alvaro Caraton pit as well, so he's not quite in that fight yet. He's about 6 seconds back from this train here. Blakely now, is he going to do his favourite move? He's going to have to go to the outside this time, but Josh Ito only does not give him the inside line, but he will have the grip on those mediums. He would assume to go all the way around the outside, gets on the power, and he'll power his way past the Welshman and move up into P12 now. So Blakely very much in this now, but are those mediums going to hang on towards the end of the race is the question, because he's gone very early compared to the rest of the field at the moment, and we're trying to see up front if anybody else is going to go for a pit stop here. Ronnar is going to go by. Is anybody going to go for it? Nobody. Top three staying out even longer, and the two front runners are going to swap and go with each other again. So it's Brendan Lee, Thomas Ronnar and Jarno Opmeer working with each other, but now Opmeer is going to move to P2 at the front of the order as well, as Blakely makes another move.
Yeah, nice stuff from Lucas Blakely there. Honest Van Pookie, 1-lap-old medium against 5-lap-old hards. Not going to be all that much of a competition, and he's knocking on the door with the fastest lap as well. He's very close to that net top 3, and I think in the next lap or two he will have that position made. Brendan Lee leading this race ahead of Jarno Opmeer and Thomas Ronnar. They, I think, are going to come into the pits in the next 1 or 2 laps. I think this time by at least one of them has got to come in. They've done 17, well, they're going to have done 17 laps on this set of the tyres. 11 laps to the end on the set of the, 10 laps to the, I'm losing my words. 10 laps on a set of the mediums towards the end. That should do them just fine, and they can take the fight to all of these guys on the worn out, older, hard compound of tyres. So now I'd say is the time to pit. We're still watching Lucas Blakely, and he really is making this a hot spot for overtakes, but Tom Manley doesn't really leave him the room on that inside. He is well within his rights to do so, but Lucas Blakely forced the move, and he got that one, I'd say, very cleanly on Tom Manley there, and Van Pookie was able to follow through. So Tom Manley, in the span of just one corner, Jack, has lost 2 places.
Yeah, Blakely came from a long way back there. I don't know if Manley was actually expecting him to go there. I think he was trying to outbrake him as well and sort of locked up the rears. Brendan Lee and Jarno Opmeer into the pit lane now. They're trying to now move on to the medium tyres with just a few laps left on the count here. Blakely now is up behind Joris Kreutzen and Freddie Rasmussen, and he has to get by them quickly. If he wants a chance at victory of any chance here, he needs to get by these two and try to create a gap, but that's going to be easier said than done. Brendan Lee and Jarno Opmeer coming down the pit lane now. Back out onto the circuit. You can see behind, you're going to be watching for that big train of cars coming back out onto the circuit Brendan Lee now on those fresh medium tyres now needs to close up and pass these guys out in front. Ronars has had to stay out an extra lap here, and Blakely is going to be gaining very much on these guys here, but you've got to watch out now for a couple of things going on here, because you can see that there is Ronar going to be pitting on this lap. You got surely Jake Bennett, Wilson Hughes, and all these guys are going to get rid of those tyres, and it's going to be a case of Blakely trying to get by and create a gap out front as Brendan Lee not wasting any time.
Oh my god, Brendan Lee there, what a move, as Lucas Blakely is also going for the overtake on Joris Krozen up ahead. I mean, I think with the undercuts being 8 laps in Ruben Pedreño's case, he'd want to be a lot further ahead of these medium runners, as there is Lucas Blakely making the move and on towards the podium. He's in P2 in a net sense. He's just got Freddie Rasmussen to overtake. Jarno Otmir as well, fighting it out with Ruben Pedreño. Pedreño's lost a lot of time to the rest of the train, and so Jarno Otmir, he is going to be the one to lose out the most, especially since he can't go for the move through 130R. He's not got the bravery to send it. He's got to go for it into the Casio Triangle. Surely for Jarno Otmir, he sticks behind very questionably, I've got to say. We'll check back in with Brendan Lee, who is going for the move on Josh Ito. Could make it 2 into 1. There's Jarno Otmir further back behind, going for the move, and there's Brendan Lee making it through on both Josh Ito and Julian Klaffenbach as his teammate Thomas Ronhaar comes out onto the circuit.
There's so much happening to keep your eyes on here, as you can see. So we've got Ronhaar has come into the pit lane, bolted on a fresh set of medium tyres. Jarno Otmir making it past Ruben Pedreño, now chasing cars in front. Brendan Lee making some big moves here as well. Now you've got Lucas Blakely, who is now in front of Rasmussen as they come across the start-finish line. So he's now in the net race lead. But Rasmussen knows that those mediums are going to go off at some stage. You've got to watch out for Brendan Lee. Watch out for these guys coming behind. Otmir now trying to go on the attack on Julian Klaffenbach. Into the hairpin he'll go. He'll show the inside, and Klaffenbach has got a broken front wing, so he's going to have no real chance at making any moves here. So Klaffenbach with a broken front wing. Ronhaar now chasing after in the position behind. You've got more cars making moves as well. Manley trying to get by Joris Kreutzen as well. What I was actually trying to remember was the move by Istvan Pukki, who slotted himself in front of Joris Kreutzen with a lovely move into the last corner. So he's now technically in the podium positions now. It's a great job by Istvan Pukki, but Rasmussen knows now he needs to be patient. He's got to try and stick with Lucas Blakely, because he knows those mediums won't last, as now Manley on the attack on Kreutzen into the final 2 corners here around the outside.
Nice.
When a Manley makes the move.
Yeah, nice stuff there from Tom Manley. Tomac Paranchas into the pit lane. There's Jarno Otmir through on Josh Ito. He's now got 1.3 seconds to Brendan Lee ahead of him. Thomas Ronhaar, how about that? Gets through on both Julian Klaffenbach and Josh Ito, headed in towards lap number 20, turn number 1. That is where we're going to see a lot of these moves taking place for the remainder of this Grand Prix. Tamas Gau calls it quits in the pit lane. We also lost Xander Van Dyken on the last lap as well. Very unfortunate to see the pair of them out of this Grand Prix, but all in all, I mean, we survived 19 laps so far with very few incidents actually taking place. There's been a little bit of contact, a little bit of rubbing throughout this race, and Brendan Lee's going to look up the inside of Joris Krozen. Can he make this one clean? Indeed he can. Very nice stuff from Brendan Lee. Absolutely flying at the minute, Jack, and this is crucial because he is now right behind Tom Manley. These two level on points in the championship. This could have big implications for that title fight.
Certainly could, but of course it's all about being consistent. Scoring points all the way through the season is what you need to be doing. So now this is going to be on the minds of all these guys now. Lap 20 of 27, and look at the train that's going on right now. Lucas Blakely leading this big long train. Rasmussen second, and Istvan Pukki third. There's so much going on. They got all the way down to P9, are all in a big train here. Tycho Hardy is just hanging on out the front and just driving away and just to the laps led stats, but now there's going to be more moves made. Now you can see a bit of weaving going on behind as they come up towards turn 1. Brendan Lee on the...
Whoa! Oh my dear. We appear to be losing Jack a little bit here. There might be some more connection issues at play at the minute. Do apologise for the lagging noises that you can hear. Jarno Otmir, we just saw him try for the move on Joris Krozen, didn't quite work out, and now he is coming under pressure from Thomas Ronhaar, headed in towards the hairpin corner. Jarno Otmir sends it up the inside of Joris Krozen. Brendan Lee moves ahead of Istvan Pukki further up the circuit, and in that hairpin corner is where we are seeing some splendid moves taking place. I think Thomas Ronhaar wants to go for it in towards Spoon as there's a car getting off to the side. I think that was Tamas Gao. For whatever reason, Tamas Gao's car is still going around the circuit here. Very interesting scenes at this point in the race. Lap number 21 of 27. Maybe it would have been a bit of a jump scare for Thomas Ronhaar, who tried to go for the move and made it stick on Joris Krozen around the outside of the corner, leading up to Spoon. We're watching Tom Manley on the back of Istvan Pukki, but he's having to look in his mirrors at the Flying Dutchman, the championship leader, Jarno Otmir. These two in a title fight at the minute, and Jarno Otmir is going to get one up on his rival Thomas Ronhaar as well, looking up the inside of Tom Manley, who's going to lose 2 positions in towards that first corner. Jack, are you with us, my friend?
Hope so. Yeah, I'm struggling. I'm trying to juggle about 5 things here, but we can see there's plenty going on out on track here. Brendan Lee is the man on the attack behind Freddie Rasmussen. Blakely trying to hang on to that lead position, but the tires are starting to show their age now as Brendan Lee is shown in on the Degner 1 inside line. Just about keeps a way out of the side potter Rasmussen. That is inch perfect from the two of them. Rasmussen desperate to hang on to P2 here, but knows he has to be contact made, moves to the inside, locks up the rears, somehow hangs onto the car. Istvan Pukki's in the fight now. Outside lineup for him on Brendan Lee. How on earth are they even still pointing in a straight line? I don't know. But Istvan Pukki moves through. Brendan Lee now trying to not lose positions further behind as Ronhaar moves through. Otmir following behind, so Ronhaar loses the rear end.
Whoa.
And 2 positions back. There's so much happening on screen right now. Brendan Lee has now lost a little position because he's broken the front wing on that car, so dropping like a stone back through the field. So Brendan Lee is just going to now have to do damage limitation with the broken front wing on the front of the Kick Sauber, and it's all gone wrong for the Englishman all of a sudden.
Wow, I mean, I don't really know where to go with that one there. I think Freddie might have moved a little bit late in regards to that defensive maneuver there. He remains in P3 at the minute. Tycho Hardy, he needs to come into the pit lane so we can stop talking about this net position mumbo jumbo. But Brendan Lee is going to be out of the fight when he was looking so competitive, and he was such a joy to watch going through this entire race. Real shame that is how this is going to end for him. He's going to try and stick it, ride it out. I mean, he's got a decent amount of time to Joris Krozen, who also lost a lot in that fray. So why not Brendan Lee try and get as many points as he can towards the end of this Grand Prix run. Lap number 23 of 27. 5 laps to go. It'll be 4 to go this time by, and I think all of the batting is still yet to unfold. Here's Jarno Otmir down the inside of Istvan Pukki. Thomas Ronhaar looking to go another way. Jarno Otmir, very clean move up the inside. Thomas Ronhaar not able to find the gap, and Istvan Pukki all of a sudden gets a massive jolt of pace, using some of his battery to try and claw the position back from Jarno Otmir, but to no avail. Jarno Otmir now into the net P3 position.
He's in a good position, isn't he, Jarno Otmir? He's leading the championship, but he has a real chance now to extend that gap. Of course, he's got his championship rivals are in and around him now. As you can see, further moves trying to be lined up there. Istvan Pukki had a little look in the mirrors as they came through. Rasmussen being patient now. Is this the chance for him? No, he's being very patient behind. As you can see, there's a little bit of a lock-up for Ronhaar. He almost completely loses the car to the side of Istvan Pukki and has to now collect the car back and gather his thoughts again. As they come down towards turn number 1, you can see Blakely and Rasmussen now about to swap positions. Rasmussen moves back in front of Blakely. Does Otmir go with him? No, he sticks behind, but he loses a bit of time on the entry to the corner there. Has to sit behind Lucas Blakely now. Are those mediums starting to show their age? But Rasmussen makes the move now back to the front of the order here, and Brendan Lee trying to hang on, but it's so unfortunate for him. He's just trying to keep that car pointing in a straight line, but that would be so frustrating with the broken end plate.
Really unfortunate for Brendan Lee, but he's doing well to keep up with Tom Manley and the rest of the train, so I think he will be able to claw some very vital points in his championship fight at the minute. And just in terms of the tyre situation, of course, those hards, they'll be able to last towards the end, no question about it. I don't think anyone's going to be in puncture territory. Lucas Blakely going to be very happy about that, considering his fortunes last week. But those tyres will definitely feel very, very rough right at the end of this race. Jan Ortmeier and Thomas Ronhard, they should still have some decent pace towards the end as there's this Van Pookie looking for a move on Jan Ortmeier. Thomas Ronhard definitely feeling the frustration right behind the Hungarian. These guys are fighting for that P4, that net P4 position. When is Tycho Hardy going to come into the pit lane? There's Tom Manley now looking for the move on Thomas Ronhard. Nice stuff up the inside through 130R as they continue on towards lap number 25 in this race, Jack. 3 laps to go, and it's still anyone's race here.
The great thing is Tycho Hardy's still leading this race out front. He's just having a good old time up there, just waiting for the last possible opportunity. But more moves being lined up behind Ronhard, trying to think about a move on Mandy, couldn't quite do it. Otmir is having a look at Blakely, couldn't quite get the run out of the first corner there, but has to stick behind. Manley though is going to have contact with Ronhard. How are they still pointing in a straight line? Ronhard makes his way through and just about keeps the car on the road. Super close to disaster for the both of them, but somehow there hasn't been a massive accident yet. I don't know how, because it's been so close, especially with that Brendan Lee Rasmussen move into Degner 1 and Degner 2. But patience being shown here by a couple of drivers here. Has Rasmussen done enough here? Does Blakely have the tyre life to try and stay in this fight here? He's got 3-lap older tyres compared to Otmir, but Otmir looks like he's really trying to have a line the Englishman up for a move. Now the Scotsman, here he comes, outside into spoon curve, surely not. Is there room? No, he backs off of it. That would have probably ended in disaster had he tried to go for that, but Otmir really fancies his chances here.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. Freddie probably wants Lucas to overtake. Lucas doesn't want to overtake, and Jarno can't find a way through. And Jarno Otmir, the frustration is going to be building in that cockpit. Newly joining the Red Bull team, and he will want to make an impact very early on with a 1-2 here in PSGL for the Red Bull Sim Racing team. That is the dream for them. Tycho Hardy will finally come into the pit lane. Here comes Jarno Otmir heading down in towards turn number 1. Freddie Rasmussen going to give his teammate a very nice bit of slipstream. Further back behind, Thomas Ronhard going side by side. I think that might have been Brendan Lee actually going through on Tom Manley. Yes, it is. They've lost quite a lot of time to that top 5. And so now with 2 laps to go in this Grand Prix, Jarno Otmir is right behind Freddie Rasmussen. Which one of these guys is going to take it?
There's Ronhard on the inside. King on the inside. That's not going to work there. Audacious, but that's obviously not going to work. So it's a Red Bull 1 and 2. Rasmussen and Otmir, the top 2 at the moment. Blakely trying to hang on those 11-lap-old medium tyres. Is there still life left in the Scotsman's tyres? We know what happened last week. There was a punk out. Look at the
Thomas Ronhard round!
And he's done the job. Unfortunately, spun the car. Went too much energy taken in, and he's dropped down to P7, and once again it's gone wrong for Thomas Ronhard. Very audacious look down the inside, and he's going to have to now deal with a P7 finish at the best for him. So that's not going to work for Thomas Ronhard. One more lap left, a lap and a half left. Who's it going to be?
I mean, I don't know at this point. Freddie Rasmussen with a very healthy gap to Jarno Otmir, heading on towards the final lap of this Grand Prix. We don't know their battery situation. Lucas Blakely could stick a nose in there. Thomas Ronhard came a falter at the hairpin corner. We're going to see a move in towards turn number 1 or through that hairpin. What are we going to see? Heading on to the final lap of this Grand Prix. DRS wide open for the Flying Dutchman. Jarno Otmir heading in towards that first corner. He'll look towards the outside of his teammate, and there is no room for defense for Freddie Rasmussen. Jarno Otmir into the lead of this Grand Prix on the final lap of this race. Freddie Rasmussen did all he can to fend off the advances of the Flying Dutchman, but it wasn't enough. Heading in towards that first corner, the DRS plus ERS combo is just too much to handle. Lucas Blakely, I think his tyres are shot. He's not going to be able to mount a challenge, and so Jack, for the final 2 sectors of this race, Jarno Otmir, he is leading this one.
He certainly is, and this might be the first win of the season. The first appearance in Red Bull colours might come away with a victory here, unless Rasmussen has something to say about it. Of course, as they come down towards Spoon Curve, he is the championship leader. He's on course to extend that championship lead over Blakely and over Manley behind, but Blakely doing a sterling job hanging on. And what a drive from Miss Van Pookie as well, hanging in there in P4 as they come down towards 130 over the final time. Is there a late twist in the tail? Is there going to be any sort of move being made? You can see the slipstream from being deployed
Oh,
deployed
my word.
by Freddie Rapton. He's closing in towards 130R. Is there a last twist in this tail as they come towards the last corner? Is Rasmus going to have a little look at the inside? He thinks about it, but doesn't do it. Pookie, though, but as there's contact further behind, but it won't matter for now. Crossing the line to take victory in round 3. Jarno Opmeer wins the Japanese Grand Prix. Rasmussen crossed the line. Red Bull 1-2 in their first appearance as teammates. Lucas Blakely by 600ths hangs on to the podium position behind. Brendan Lee is P5 with the broken front wing. Manley, Ronar, Klaffenbach, Crutzen and Pepinter, your final point scorers here in Japan. But back on top once again, Jarno Opmeer, fresh to the Red Bull team, scores himself a victory alongside his brand new teammate Rasmussen, returns to the podium, and Blakely in P3. But what a drive from the Dutchman. He's back on top again.
Welcome to Red Bull, Jarno Opmeer. What a race. And I know all of the higher ups at Red Bull, they're going to be rubbing their hands together knowing that they have got the absolute best duo on the F1 Sim Racing grid and the PSGL grid as well. Jarno Opmeer rightfully is your driver of the day, and what a race that was from him. We'll get the podium celebrations out the way very, very soon. I want to talk to these guys. I hope Freddie Rasmussen does join us for an interview. Jarno Opmeer most definitely will, and we'll get to talk to him. But there it is, the Flying Dutchman. He will stand atop the podium, and how about that for a top 3? 3 F1 Sim Racing champions, the 3 most recent F1 Sim Racing champions as well, standing 1, 2 and 3 here today. It's a real shame that Brendan Lee was involved in his incident. I think he would have had a real chance of taking that win, but there it is. You can see the results on your screen pending any stewards inquiries. It is Jarno Opmeer taking the victory ahead of his Red Bull teammate Freddie Rasmussen. Lucas Blakely, after a puncture last time out in Silverstone, will take third here today. And he's back on the podium once again. Istvan Pukki in P4, P5 for Brendan Lee with a broken front wing. Tom Manley in P6. And our pole sitter, Thomas Ronhaar, disappointing day once again at the office for him. He will come in P7 ahead of a pair of youngsters. Actually, 3 youngsters to say that. Julian Klaffenbach in 8th. 9th was Joris Krozen on his F1 debut. Lenny Pepinter rounding out that top 10. Just missing out on a points paying position is Josh Ado in 11th, followed by Prejnader, Caraton, Hughes, Pedreño, who had a very disappointing day. It's safe to say from 5th down to 15th. Tycho Hardy in 16th, 17th for Jake Benham, and Tomek Peranjic, the last of your finishers, with Tamas Dyken DNFing from this one today. What a race that was, that saw Jarno Opmeer back on the top step of the podium, winning on his very first day a part of the Red Bull Sim Racing team.
Well, Red Bull are going to be happy at the very least. Their top 2, of course, their top 2 drivers, again, taking the top 2 spots. But again, a hat tip to Lucas Blakely, brilliant drive. 10th on the grid to 3rd, and had a good chance. And he tried an audacious strategy. He went very early to those medium tyres. Wasn't sure it was going to work, but he held on. I was slightly worried for him this week, though, as we've seen tyres have not been his best friend this season so far. But it held on, takes P3. Jarno Opmeer will extend this championship lead, but of course Blakely will follow him now with that 3rd place finish. So what a race, great job. And as you said, the 3 most recent F1 Sim Racing champions are the top 3 here. So that shows you the quality of the grid that we've got here at PSGL. But compared to last season, it took a lot longer for Jarno to take a victory, and it's round 3 and he's on top already. But what we're seeing, a trend, is pole position is not where you want to start, because on both occasions now, Ronar has come away with no points, but he has come away at least with some points for the moment, pending any stewards' inquiries. But disappointing day at the office for him, but certainly not for Red Bull. What a day for them.
I mean, what a race for Jarno Opmeer and Freddie Rasmussen. Shout out to Freddie as well. A lot of the hard runners, they struggled to keep up with the the drivers who started on the mediums went onto the hards. They all struggled to keep up with those with fresher mediums, but Freddie held his own. He kept leading that race. Well, he got overtaken by Lucas Blakely. Then when the opportunity was right, retook the lead. Unfortunate that he lost out just in the very last couple of laps. I mean, that was sensational from Jarno Opmeer. He played that race once again like a fiddle. He does this every single time. In the live chat, we've had the votes for driver of the day, and it is a staggering, out of 1,000 votes, Jack, 93% of them go towards Jarno Opmeer. Shout out to Lucas getting 2%, Joris Krozen as well for getting 1%, and Freddie for getting 1%. I think maybe we could have had a bit of a different distribution of the driver of the day votes, but we know how popular Jarno Opmeer is, and there's going to be a lot of adoring fans in the live chat happy with that result. Let us know how you are feeling after that one, but Jack, I know how we're feeling. Astounded.
Yeah, I was week in, week out, something else happens, and that was again a brilliant race to watch. And again, it's incredible to see that we get consistently something different happening every single week. Bahrain, we had I actually was missing for Bahrain, but I know it was a crack of a race. Blakely taking that one. Silverstone, mixed conditions in the wet. And now we've had strategy mix-up, undercuts, overcuts, everything happening at once, and plenty to talk about going forward for sure. But there's a lot that can be said for these races, but they always deliver something. And it seems like I think perhaps the strategy going forward for Thomas Ronnar is stop qualifying on pole because it's not working.
No. he's got to adopt the Freddie strategy. Qualify second, finish second. It's not the most glamorous way to get a decent haul of points, but second place is second place. But you know what, Jack? I think the mentality of these drivers, second is the first to lose, and Freddie Rasmussen, he will be recuperating next week. He'll be going for that win in Jeddah. It's going to be very exciting to see. We're still waiting for all three podium sitters to head into the waiting room. Normally, Lucas Blakely, from what I remember, Jack, he loves to come in here and talk to us. Jarno Opmeer as well. Not so much Freddie Rasmussen, but I feel like we should hopefully, fingers crossed, hear from them very, very soon. But let's talk about Jeddah next time out. It is going to be an astounding race. It's quite similar to Japan in the sense that it's got those weaving S's section, but I think it's got a little bit more to it. It's got the most corners out of any circuit on the Formula 1 calendar. And it makes for a really exciting race. And in terms of the drivers standing on it, I would say, whilst they hate Japan, a lot of them tend to love Jeddah.
You want to talk about playing DRS chicken? You're going to see a lot of that in Jeddah with this. But yeah, Jeddah has always delivered something special as well. It's always great to watch in qualifying. We've seen plenty of upsets over the time as well. I believe Isfan Pookie took his first ever victory at Jeddah a couple of seasons ago as well. He drove a great race today as well, P4 for Isfan Pookie as well. He drove a brilliant race on those hard compound tires. Sort of just it tends to be his way of driving, as he sort of flies under the radar, follows, and then all of a sudden he just appears in the podium position and all these kind of things. It's a fantastic drive from him as well, and we're looking forward to seeing how he progresses through the season as well. But I will say, Dan, last week none of the drivers showed up, and I think it's the same this week. I don't know what's happening this week. None of them want to talk to us anymore.
No, is it something we did, Jack? Do you think we've done?
No, I don't think so. But I think it's been linked to me because they showed up. They showed up in round 1 when I wasn't here, and as soon as I show up in round 2, they stop showing up. So but it's me. So the real test is going to be next week because I'm not here next week. So if they show up in the commentary box, I know what's wrong.
You know what, Jack? Don't worry about anything because we have got Jarno Opmeer in the waiting room, so we will drag in the Flying Dutchman. It's been a very big day for Jarno Opmeer. First and foremost, my friend, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, perfect. Let's start this one off. In qualifying, you weren't all that near the top of the order, but you were very audacious in the race, and we saw some spectacular moves coming out from yourself. Just describe how you felt heading in towards that hairpin and going for those gutsy moves.
Actually, I didn't take a lot of risk because in my very first move, I already got shunted off the track, so I had to be a bit careful. So it got a bit tricky to overtake anyway because there's no runoff really on a lot of entries. It's straight away into the grass. So yeah, I didn't take a lot of risk. I could have gone through the pack a lot faster, but yeah, you could see as well other people, a lot of incidents. So yeah, it was probably the right thing to do.
And of course, with all these, I mean, there was a lot of incidents going on, but you managed to keep your nose clean. And there was actually one particular incident between your teammate now, Freddie Rasmussen, and Brendan Lee. From your point of view, you were just a few cars back, and it ended up being one big gaggle. What was going through your mind as you were following that train?
Obviously trying to overtake because we had a huge tire advantage. At the same time, stay out of trouble because, as you just said, there was a huge gaggle of cars trying to dive on each other every single corner. So yeah, what was going to my brain? Try to keep it on track, not make any big contact. The contact model is very sensitive on this game, so yeah, if you touch, you instantly get sent off for. Yeah, it's very sensitive, but you don't know. It's very unnatural, so you don't know what it's going to do. Obviously, if you touch when you're on the outside, you expect to get sent off the track, but sometimes you actually spin inwards on this game. So yeah, it's tricky. Definitely need to be a lot more careful than in previous games, but at the same time, in real life you can't make contact as well. So I think the driver just has to get used to it a little bit at the moment.
Well, after all of the incidents unfolded and you were finally in a decent solidified position, you were able to overtake Freddie Rasmussen on the final lap, and of course he is now your teammate, a part of the Red Bull Sim Racing team, of course recently announced today. Heading now in towards the rest of the season, knowing that you've got a 1 and 2, does that give you confidence that the pair of you can fight A, for the title, you know, between each other, and B, for that team standings? And heading in towards the eventual F1 sim racing season, what does that do for the team morale?
Yeah, the goal is of course to win everything we compete in. That's for sure. And yeah, of course, Freddie is the current world champion, so I of course expect him to be in the top end of the championship and PSGL as well. And yeah, today it was close again. He could have gone for the move in the final chicane. He didn't do it. I would have been very careful for sure because yeah, those 4 points more or less don't matter too much. I think we both wanted to keep it very clean. So yeah, he could have gone for the move very easily. He had a lot of overspeed into the final chicane and he didn't. So yeah, GG's to him for being very careful as well, of course. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it all worked out in the end. It's a 1-2 for Red Bull in your very first race. That is all from me. Jack, anything you want to say to our race winner here?
Yeah, I suppose. How long has this Red Bull move been in the works, Jarno? Because I know people have been talking about it for a while. Well, when did conversations start that this was a possibility?
Well, I already saw tweets flying by that I was going to Red Bull when I'd not even talked to Red Bull yet. So yeah, it's always very interesting how this works sometimes. But yeah, yeah, it's been in the works for a while, of course. I obviously announced early this month that I was leaving Merck, and yeah, by then I obviously already knew that I was going to be working together with Red Bull for the next F1 esports season. So yeah, it's been a couple of months for sure.
Just sounds funny for me now. You've got obviously new team, new teammate as well, and Freddie. A lot of experience between you and him. How do you think that team dynamic is going to work? Because there's a lot of experience there, of course.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, the F1 game changes a lot every year. If you're a world champion on one game, doesn't mean you're going to be good at the other game. Obviously means you're a great driver, but I think we see this in a lot of different esports as well, like League of Legends, where the meta changes all the time. Yeah, you see different players shine. So yeah, we have to work hard. It doesn't matter. We won, or Freddie won the championship last year, and I won it in 2020 and 2021. Or we'll finish where, because we're all gonna be on zero again with a very different game. So yeah, we will see. Of course, experience helps, but it doesn't mean we're gonna be great in F1 esports as well. We have to practice really hard in order to get back to the top.
That's great. Well, not a bad way to start off your Red Bull career, Jano, with a 1-2 with your teammate. But we'll let you go. Congratulations on the victory, and we will see you in Jeddah.
Yeah, thank you.
Really well done. Really well done to Jarno Altmaier, winning in his very first race for Red Bull. I think he couldn't have asked for a better way to start off his new chapter in his career. He's had chapter 4 now. He started with Renault, then he moved over to Alfa Romeo where he won his first title. Then we saw that era of Mercedes, and I think Jarno Altmaier, him and Mercedes went hand in hand for so many years. I think since F1 2021 is when he made the swap over to Mercedes. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to seeing him in the blue colors, the blue and red colors of Red Bull, but you know what, it's a nice change for him, and he's got a very experienced teammate in Freddie Rasmussen. It's going to give him a lot of trouble both in PSGL and of course F1 sim racing. We've got very exciting times to come ahead of us, Jack. But for now, I think this is the point where we leave off. It was a sensational race here in Japan. We're headed to Jeddah next time out, where I just know that they're going to take it up a whole other level. So it's going to be an incredible one for them. Make sure, if you haven't already, you leave a like on the PSGL broadcast, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel as well if you're watching on Twitch. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that follow button. You can find us at Premier Sim GL on all socials. That is Instagram, X, TikTok as well. And make sure you join our Discord if you want to keep up to date with all the PSGL news. You can find myself on X at DanfieldF1_. And Jack, why don't you plug yourself here?
If you look at the beautiful graphics, brand new for this season,
oh
you
yeah,
can see at JackCcoms down below. You can find me on X or Twitter, whatever the hell it's called now. And yeah, you can get up to date with everything that's going on there. And don't forget to follow at Premier Sim GL on X as well for all the inevitable stewards inquiries that will probably come out today as well. The stewards are going to be busy. They're always busy, and we thank them for their service and for everything that they're going to have to go through. But 3 rounds down, 3 different race winners. Let's see if we can keep it going. But what is for sure is it's Jarno Altmaier at the head of the championship versus Lucas Blakely at the moment.
Yeah, Jarno Altmaier looking to continue on strong next time out in Jeddah. But for now, he will leave Japan still in the championship lead and with a win under his belt. We will see you next time out in Saudi Arabia, same time next week. Don't go anywhere. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. We will see you very, very soon for the final time. Thank you and good night.